Welcome to the inaugural edition, the soft opening, the pilot episode, the test run, whatever you want to call it, of the Winged Eagle podcast. What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday night. It's weekend time. What a perfect night to come up and kind of test my new format, try to get used to what I'm going to be doing going forward with the weekly podcasts, with the discussion of the current product, weekly TVs, pay-per-views, things like that. This was something on the channel that I desperately needed to change. The way I was doing it before was way too time consuming, and I wanted to change some things. And I thought a nice rebranding, a fresh look, a facelift, if you will, to the podcast, give the whole thing an overall new look. And I'm going to change the way I do these. A lot of these are going to be on camera. Most of them are going to be live. Some of them won't, but most of them are going to be like this. And the whole point of this is to save all of my time consuming editing for bigger projects. This Day in History's DVD reviews, pay-per-view reviews, shit like that. Stuff that's more fun to talk about, put it that way. So that's what we're going to do going forward. You guys can all hear me, right? And see me? What's up, guys? Just saying hello in the chat. This is going to be, like I said, this is going to be kind of a test run here. We got a lot of shit to talk about. I've put down here in the ticker, I'm going to start doing this for podcasts. All of the stuff we're going to talk about will be down below. This is going to be more casual than my podcast going forward. I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to the chat. I'll go down here and say my hellos here in a second. But as it comes, when I stream on Monday nights, when I watch Raw, that's much more casual, laid back. I'm talking to all of you guys. When it comes to these podcasts, I might be a little bit more business, and a little bit less chat. That's going to be my overall goal. Tonight won't be that way. I'll be talking with you guys, I'm sure, plenty. But going forward, when I start doing these every week, I could be doing them a lot of different ways. I could be doing them on camera just like you see now. I might do them off camera where it will still be live, but instead of my face, you're just going to see some other shit and I'm going to talk. It's just going to be the audio. That'll help me on days that, maybe I'm really busy at work or I'm not feeling camera ready. Maybe I don't have my hair did, or I just don't want to be on camera for whatever reason. I can maybe concentrate, focus more on my notes and what we need to talk about. And it would also give us a nice mixture. Sometimes I'm on camera, sometimes I'm off. And there will also be occasions where I pre-record these and release them. So it's going to be a combination of all four things. Pre-recorded and live, off camera, on camera. And I think that'll give the channel some variety, at least with the podcasts. And then, of course, as was the case with my podcasts previously, the audio of all of these will be back available on my website for download on all of the podcast sites, the iTuneses and the Stitchers and the Spotifys and shit like that. So that's kind of the plan with this Winged Eagle podcast. And it's a work in progress. I'm not there yet. The official launch of this isn't going to be for a couple of more weeks. I've got a trip to take next week. I'm going to be gone for like 5 days. So next week's not a really good time. And I'll have an official date for you in an upcoming video or on social media. So make sure you hit me with a follow over on Twitter. But like I said, this is a work in progress. A couple things that are going to change here in the next couple weeks right off the bat is probably my background. You guys are still looking at my kitchen. For those of you who watched my most recent video on my channel, a watch-along, SummerSlam watch-along with Brock Lesnar and The Rock from SummerSlam 2002, I'm sitting more this way and looking at the camera with a big media shelf behind me. It looks great. Eventually, that's what I want my background to be, but the way my computer is set up, it's kind of hard to configure it, so what I need to do is do a complete overhaul of my little office area. But eventually, you're going to see my background change. You're also going to see the camera improve. I already have a new webcam, a nice 4K webcam. The problem is, I'm also buying a new computer. And I don't want to use this new webcam until I get the new computer in, get all of the drivers installed for the camera, and I'm able to push it to its max potential. Because if I do it here, I'm just plugging it in, and it's really not better than the one I'm currently using. But when the new computer comes, that'll look better, and this will all take place in the month of August. And by the time we hit September, we should be looking the way we're going to look. And it's in the nick of time, too, because we're going to have a busy fall. We got AEW on TNT. Smackdown is moving to Fox. It's going to be a fun-ass time, and I really wanted to take the summer, and I appreciate everybody's patience with me, too, because my video schedule has been a little bit off. I kind of put the podcast on hiatus for a couple of months while I dealt with some personal issues, the death of my father, things like that, and it also gave me a chance to kind of refocus and kind of regroup myself and the channel, because when we get to the fall, it's going to be like balls to the wall, man. So it's Monday Night Wars revisited. So I wanted to be ready for that. I wanted to be mentally ready. I wanted the channel to look good. I wanted us to be all nice and nice. That way, I'm not behind. And I want to continue to supply content to the channel on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, multiple videos a week. And so that's what I've been working on, tinkering with behind the scenes all summer long. So those of you that stuck with me, I appreciate it. And I know the content kept coming. It's not like I was short for content. I was just doing things a lot differently, a lot more mic drops, a lot more random videos, things that I didn't normally do. And I was really only doing that to keep the steady flow of videos on the channel. So you guys have been great. Subscribers continue to climb. And things are all good in GoodMicWork land. And I think it's going to be a fun next few months and a fun remainder of 2019. Catherine Rosario, we got a mod in here. What's up, my friend? What's up, Morgan? You guys are keeping me company tonight while I supervise a salsa party. What does that mean? Like you guys are all having like chips and salsa together? I know what a salsa party is. That's awesome. Supervising, good. Happy Friday night, and happy Friday night to everybody. I'm glad that I can be your date. I had to work a long day today. The reason I'm up here right now doing this is because I was working today. And I got off a couple hours ago. And I'm like, perfect. I'll come home Friday night. We'll do a test run of the Winged Eagle. And we'll try to get things off and running here. What do you mean by that, Jose? Why lose the numbers of the podcast? Oh, I'm glad you asked that. I'll talk about that in a minute. I got a super chat to answer here. And by the way, for those of you wondering, we have a ton of wrestling stuff to get into. We're going to talk about a lot of wrestling news, talk about this past week's Raw reunion, Smackdown Live, preview the SummerSlam card, talk about all sorts of shit that's going underneath you on the ticker right now. But I figured for the first few minutes, half an hour here, we're going to shoot the shit. And I wanted to give you a channel update, podcast update, and all that stuff. So I'll get back to your question there, Jose, in a second. But Ian Derbyshire, thanks for the $5, dude. I appreciate it. How would you phase out the wild card rule since we're in a pay-per-view build? I know Vince is appeasing the networks, but it's killing the company. I know. I have a feeling that when that comes to an end, it's just going to come to an end. They've got lots of different ways they can do it. The simplest way is just to have Heyman or Bischoff or both just say, this rule is in the can now. It's in the toilet. It's done. We don't need an explanation. It's stupid. We should have never done it to begin with. We're in charge now. Fuck off wild card rule. That's what I'm hoping they do. I hope it's like a clean break, nothing crazy, no build to it, no match to determine if it stays intact or not. Just end it. That's how I would end it. I would just end it. But Jose, what you were asking before, that's another thing I wanted to mention. The reason I renamed this podcast is because before I did like 500 episodes of this shit, and I never even had a name for it other than GoodMicWork Commentaries, which is the name of my YouTube channel. And I was thinking to myself, I should, with a rebranding, I should come up with like a new name. And, I was kind of brainstorming ideas, and all the cool names in wrestling are already taken for podcasts. And I thought Winged Eagle fit really nicely because of my love for Bret Hart and my love for that title belt specifically. It hangs in the background here. It's my favorite wrestling belt ever. I thought that would be a good name for the podcast. So my awesome graphics designer put together this beautiful logo. And I was like, yeah, that'll be nice. I'll just have a kind of a new name to the podcast, because when I was numbering them, that wasn't accurate. I really only picked up the numbering around like episode 100, and I kind of guesstimated at that point, because in the early days of YouTube, I wasn't expecting to do it very long. I was just doing it for shits and gigs on the side as a hobby, few thousand views here or there, no big deal. And I didn't take it seriously at all, for the first several years. And so I kind of just estimated how many episodes I did, because I deleted a lot of them, copyright issues and things like that. So I was like, I've probably done 100 episodes by now, so I'll start counting at 101. And I started counting from there. So the number has never been completely accurate. It's probably close. I mean, when you get up to 500 plus episodes, what's the difference if you're 10 plus or 10 minus? But I still didn't feel like it was accurate. And it always bugged me. It's always bothered me. And with each fucking episode, 300s, 400s, and I'm like, this shit's bugging me. One day I have to like change this. So what better time than 2019? Just WWE switching networks, AEW's going to TNT. Let's spice up the podcast and spice up the YouTube channel a little bit. That's why I've upgraded a lot of my equipment, got a new computer coming, updated my graphics, shit like that, just like cosmetic stuff. If I want to have thousands and thousands of subscribers, I need to look legit, right? I can't be some jabroni, broadcasting live from Osama bin Laden's compound. Some people look like they're fucking in a goddamn teepee out in the middle of the woods. I want to have like a nice, clean, crisp, nice-looking show for you guys to watch and hang out. Thank you, Howeezy. Good to see you in here. We got Catherine and Howeezy as some mods running the ship. I don't think we're going to have a huge audience tonight. We got over 100 people in here right now. So if you really want to help the podcast, number one, you can tweet anything, tweet me, tweet anybody, but just hashtag Winged Eagle Podcast, and you can thumbs up this video, smash that like, and hook a brother up. And these podcasts should be pretty fun going forward. It was actually getting to the point where I wasn't having a good time doing them. I wasn't even enjoying the editing process. It was a pain in the ass. So I was like, I want to edit when I'm talking about stuff I like to talk about, you know, back in the good old days and reviews. You know, I do not want to edit 10 minutes of a discussion about Baron fucking Corbin, you know what I mean? So I'm like, current product, it's going to have to be live from now on. Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy. But how Wheezy, as popular as Boogeyman is, you see him going into the Hall of Fame. Damn, how Wheezy, you're pushing it. I don't know. I would say no. What has Boogeyman ever done? How many matches has he actually had in WWE? He had that quick run, and you guys are going to have to help me because I don't remember. He had that quick run in 2006. I know he wrestled Booker T at WrestleMania. How long was his run like actually in the ring? It only felt like a year to me. After that, it seems like he was just popping up here and there, doing a lot of backstage stuff. Like, how many physical matches has he actually had? I don't know. I would vote no on Boogeyman, but considering that he's just a dude that they just randomly keep bringing back in. What would his Hall of Fame speech be like? Nobody knows anything about him. I don't even know his real name. That would be weird. I'm going to vote no on Boogeyman. Nothing against him, but we got to draw the line somewhere with the Hall of Fame. Spaz Phoenix, good to see you in here, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. And congrats on the new format. It'll kick ass. I hope so. This will be on iTunes and all that shit. Yes, going forward now, I am going to be releasing the audio. You can download it on my website, and you can also pick it up on those podcast sites. I'm going to go back to doing that. The only thing that's going to be different about that is going to suck compared to when I was like editing and pre-recording my shit is that if you're listening to the audio of this. It's also why I want to limit the chat discussion, because if you're listening to this later on Spotify or something, you know, I don't want you to have to listen to me talking to people in the chat the whole time. So as we go forward with the podcast, I'm going to acknowledge the chat, and I'm going to answer every super chat for sure. But I may not be interacting as much. I need to stay focused. I need to talk about what we need to talk about. And shit like that. The other option to doing that, if I can't get away from interacting with the chat too much, or I feel like the audio is just going to be too draining for you guys to listen to, I may chop it up and edit out some of the bullshit and then release that. That may be an option going forward. But again, that takes time, and it just depends. But my plan as of right now is to release the audio, and it will be available. I just want it to be enjoyable for those of you who are listening in your car or driving or working out or wherever, instead of me just randomly talking about shit, kind of like I'm doing now. But like I said, this is a test episode. There's no rules tonight. And as we go in and we get into a few of these, you guys will see kind of what I have in mind and how I plan on doing them and all of that. And then the big nights for the chat discussion can be Monday nights. I'm still going to be up here every Monday night reacting to Raw, and we can talk about our favorite tuna fish sandwiches on Monday night. But during the podcast, I got to keep shit straight. And we got to be business. Y'all got to keep me on track too. If I start trailing off, say, hey, Greg, shut the fuck up and get into what you need to get into. I won't be offended. I got one beer. I really don't feel like drinking tonight, but I did open one beer, and I'm going to lightly sip on it. This motherfucker is 8.5% alcohol. So I'm just going to drink this and call it a day, and I got a water with me. So should be a fun Friday night hangout. How long have we been going here? 15 minutes? Yeah. How's it going, John Seaman? Good to see you in here. I'm wondering about that. AEW versus NXT on Wednesdays. We're going to talk about All Elite Wrestling. I guess the night for their show has been announced. It is going to be on Wednesdays. NXT is currently on Wednesdays. And there's also talk that when Smackdown moves over to Fox, that maybe NXT lands on one of their affiliates or something. So that's a very big possibility that NXT may no longer even be on the network. They might move NXT to TV and maybe start playing like Evolve and shit on the network in NXT's place. It's a possibility. And they still have NXT UK and all that stuff as well. So it's going to be an interesting fall season, to say the least. Almighty, thank you for the 99 cents. You are the best, MK. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it. And good to see you in here too, Life of Brandon. Thank you to everyone that was tweeting me and stuff today. That's really cool. Make sure you follow me over at GoodMicWork. A lot of Twitter interaction today, which was nice. And a few things that we're going to talk about later involving The Undertaker, and something that kind of dawned on me last night about his career. What does that mean? How about the hit? Sorry, I'm reading a tweet. See, that's why I got to stay focused here and get my shit together. Happy to see you too, Nick. I'm your favorite wrestling YouTuber? That's great. I appreciate it. Spaz Phoenix with another one. We're going to get into all the news here. We're going to give another like 5 minutes, and then we'll jump right in, head first. Let's get our bearings straight here. Spaz, thank you for another $5, dude. By the way, go over to Spaz Phoenix's YouTube channel and give him a subscription. He talks about wrestling and shit, and you can listen to him, and he's got good opinions, and he ain't no dummy. Going to a Destiny show the night before TakeOver, just announcing the dual main event, OVE versus SCU. Mustache Mountain, Josh Alexander, and Michael Elgin. That's not a horrible card. That's the Destiny is what's near you, right? I think you have told me about that promotion a few times. That's cool, and that's the night before TakeOver. Cool. Oh, man, Toronto's going to be rocking for SummerSlam weekend. I wish I was there. I wish I was going. I'm going to be in Michigan next week, so I just couldn't. Every time there's some big event, I always have some other shit planned. We're real close to it. Maybe. Live stream of AEW's first show. I definitely want to watch AEW's first show. I'm going to make plans. I think that's October 2nd. I'm going to make plans to be off that night for sure. Live stream is not out of the question. I may just want to sit back and watch it and tweet about it. I'm not sure, but I'm definitely going to be home for that. I want to see it. And Zombie Fighter, good to see you in here too. And Razor Demon, Luna, Ben, and all y'all that are in here. About 128 folks. Smash that thumbs up for me. Let's try to get a few likes in here. And we will start getting into the news. I think I'm going to start with news. That's the plan. So the format we're going to use here tonight, I'm going to talk about the wrestling news that I have jotted down. Not talking about all of the wrestling news, just the shit that I find important. We'll talk about Jimmy Uso's arrest and all that. And then we will get into the Raw reunion, talk a little bit about that. A lot of opinions I have about that show and, you know, what we saw and what the point of it was and all that stuff. And what it accomplished. And we'll also talk about Smackdown, which was also a good show this week. And both WWE titles are now set. The title matches for the men and the women are set for SummerSlam. A few other matches were announced on SmackDown as well, and we'll preview the entire SummerSlam card as it stands right now, which I think I have 6 matches on the card announced according to WWE.com for SummerSlam. So that is the format for tonight. Joshua Aparicio, thank you for the $2. This is your first super chat since you quit your job. Hi. Well, how are you? Yeah, don't send me any more money if you just quit your job. But I appreciate your donation and your support. You are awesome. I hope it felt good to quit a job. Sometimes quitting a job can be very liberating. It's like being paroled. I know the feeling. Am I missing something on the WWE Network? I have not been on it in like 2 days. Is there a new format? There is. Holy shit. Look at this. I didn't know about this. Twitter has a new layout as well. For your desktop, anyway. At least I do. Yeah, so WWE Network's got... I did not see this. I would have put this on my notes, and I would have talked about it. I was not aware that WWE has changed their layout for the network. I hope... It can't be worse than what it was. I really struggled with it. Does anyone know, is this format changed on, like, your TV apps? You know, like on your Roku's, Apple TVs, or whatever, or smart TVs? I'm curious about that, because it's impossible to find anything on the app. You can't search shit on there unless you know the exact name. I've always struggled with searching with the network. Why is some of this shit locked? Oh, I'm not signed in. Yeah, interesting. I'll play around with this tonight and see if I like it better. I'm assuming I will. I'm assuming WWE, because they haven't really changed anything about the layout or the format since they launched 5 years ago. Looks pretty much the same, right? So surely they've addressed the issues and the fan complaints about this. I mean, I love the network. I think the network is fucking great. My only issue with it is probably like the searching and trying to find shit on there. It's just harder than it should be, I think. Sometimes I'm trying to find something very, very simple that you should just be able to type in, and there it is, and everything but comes up. So it's a little bit frustrating, but the content is great. I've never once had an issue with a pay-per-view. Freezing, buffering, whatever. I think as long as you have a decent computer and internet connection, network should work for you just fine. I've never had a problem with it. Never had a malfunction. Never gone down. I've had excellent luck in 5 years. Literally not one issue with it. And I've said time and time again that I would gladly pay $20 for what they're giving me. And if they ever do add tiers, which they may have here, if they start adding tiers $15.99 where you get more shit, I'll do it. Totally. The network is badass. And I hope whatever the new changes are has worked out or hammered out some of the kinks. All right, I got a couple of more super chats here. Any plans for Patreon content coming up? Yes, next thing on my list, Tarbrihan. You should have seen, the funny thing is, and thank you for the $2, brother. When the beginning of the summer started, and I kind of said, okay, time to do some revamping. New equipment, new look, new ideas, shit like that. I had basically a run sheet, like a to-do list. And Patreon is the literal next thing on my list. Patreon page needs to be overhauled. The people that have been my supporters on Patreon have been with me for a long time, and there's only a handful of them. And I think I could have a lot more patrons if I gave more of a shit about it. It's really hard to like manage everything. I got social media, I got a YouTube channel, I got a website, I got a full-time job, I got a second job with this podcast, I got to watch all this wrestling. I like to sort of have a life if that's possible as well, and it's really hard to keep track of shit. I need an assistant. I need a social media manager or something to do my Patreon stuff, but I really want to update the Patreon page. I did update my website recently, put the appropriate links up there, put a photo of myself, updated my bio, and the logo change and all of that. I worked on that, and the next thing to kind of revamp is the Patreon stuff, and I would like to start doing content over there. Right now, I think I have, about 20 patrons or something, but I think I could easily have 100 if I just gave incentive to support on Patreon. You know, who's going to support you monthly if you're not giving them any fucking incentives? So I would definitely like to come up there and just do maybe some live exclusive content just for patrons. I'm going to be working on that. That's coming as well, Tar. But I appreciate your support. Yeah, I've been busy. Working on all this shit. Hey, thanks, King Bling. You found me through TV Tracks back in the day. Yeah, he wanted to use some of my content, and I was like, of course you can. He's great. So I feel bad that he kind of disappeared a year ago, but like so many YouTubers, and I didn't blame him once, we exchanged a few DMs, and he was just basically, burnout. And I can't even blame him. I've never seen anyone more dedicated, because he did myself, he did Solid Monster and Don Tony and Kevin Castle, and he was so religiously committed to doing those clips every week. And he only did mine for a short time. I think I was only with him for a year and a half, maybe a year, something like that, before he called it quits. And he was doing Solid Monster and those guys long before me. And so just in the first year alone, my first year on TV Tracks, he uploaded 600 clips of my show alone. Just mine. You add about the same amount, if not more, for the other guys. You're talking in the neighborhood of close to 2,000 video clips per year. That's a lot. And he was consistent as hell with it. Never once missed anything. And so that means not only did he have to do all that, he had to listen to all of our shit, chop all of our shit up, upload all of our shit. Painstaking. And he was cool too. He kicked me money over on Patreon, to make up for the ad revenue that he was gaining from the videos, but it was good exposure for me. He has a shit ton of subscribers, and I'm in pretty good company with those other two podcasts. They're not jabronis. So it was good. It was good. I miss being on there, but at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to develop the mic drop segment, because once Tracks was done, I'm like, well, I need a clip segment. I was doing that on my second channel for years, but that was kind of inconsistent. It was the second channel that is still dormant, by the way. There may be a future for that second channel. I'm not sure. I've been thinking about an idea, but I've thought about ideas before and never followed through. But there may be a plan for that second channel that's just sitting there with 5,000 subs doing nothing. I might have some ideas for that. So I was doing it over there for a long time, but, when Tracks stopped, I'm like, okay, the mic drop segment will be perfect. That way I can chop up my own shit and get more, little advertisements, little clips out there of my show, a way for people to discover me. And the mic drops will probably change a little bit too as we go forward. Some of those are now live, or some of those are more current. Instead of me taking a clip from a previous podcast, sometimes I'm just coming up and talking for 10 minutes. So the mic drops can sometimes be exclusive, and sometimes they can be a clip from a previous show. So that's just another way to add content to the channel. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Shall we get into the wrestling news here, which has been about 30 minutes now of us shooting the shit, which is what I penciled in. I even said First 30 minutes, talk about the channel, talk about your plans, shoot the shit for a little while, and then get into it. Because this is going to be about as casual as this podcast gets going forward when I come up here. I'm going to have to be, like I said, more business. I'm probably going to have less time. One thing, if you've noticed, that I have not announced yet is what day of the week I plan to do this on. In my head, and I really wish, because I think that's one really important thing for a podcaster or a YouTuber, one of the most important things when it comes to your content, especially a video series or a podcast series, is you have to pick a day and be consistent with that day. The problem with me is my full-time job can be unpredictable, and I may not always be available. But one thing I think is definitely going to be possible is for me to be available on Fridays to do this podcast. So in my head, that's what we're doing. We're going to do Fridays. Most of the time, however, I'm going to be doing these before I head to work because I work at night. But luckily, I'm on the West Coast. So if you're on the East Coast, it's going to be nighttime for you anyway. But what I'm probably going to be coming up here and doing is on Fridays at around 3 p.m. my time, local time, 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. Eastern, I'll come up here and do the podcast. And then I'll do it for about an hour and a half if I have to. And then generally I'm heading off to work about 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And that's the plan. I just haven't wanted to completely commit to that because I've been brainstorming ideas of other ways to do things to make it consistent. But I think all in all, Fridays is going to be the best way to do it. But it's going to be much earlier than this. You know, this is 10:30 p.m. right now on the East Coast. So I'm going to be up here much earlier than this most times. But if there is a day where I'm needed at work during the day and I have the Friday night off, it'll be a Friday night podcast. So it's definitely going to be Fridays, but the time could vary from week to week. So unfortunately, I can't say, join me every Friday at 6 p.m. My job, my real job, or my full-time job will not allow me to do that. So that's the only thing that kind of sucks about the podcast. But I do think I can narrow it down to Fridays for sure. The time will just vary. Hopefully, that's okay with you guys. And plus, Fridays is a good day to do it because that gives you a couple of days for Raw and SmackDown to settle. Any sort of late-breaking news to come in. You know, NXT has happened, so if anything crazy happens, everything should happen by Friday, you know, kind of thing. Where, you know, if I come up and do a podcast on Wednesday morning right after SmackDown and Raw, you know, and something crazy happens that night, then it's like, oh shit, it's obsolete. I wish I would have talked about that. So Friday will be a good time. It'll give me a week to get down my notes. I can jot shit down all week. And by the time I get to Friday, I'll have a good list of stuff to talk about, and it'll be like our Friday ritual. So hopefully y'all don't have plans on Fridays, and it'll be a great way to kick off your weekend, right? I think so. Yeah, maybe no more fuck, marry, kills, Catherine. Not on the podcast. Maybe on the live streams you can get me one, because on the live streams, who knows what I'm up to. I'm usually drinking on those. We're having a good time. If I could go back and think about all the different subjects and random shit, non-wrestling stuff that we've discussed on the live streams where we're just hanging out, it's been pretty funny. We talk about everything. You like cheese on your fucking hot dogs? You know, like, it amazes me, the shit that we talk about. Anywho, all right, we're looking good here. Let me get back to where I'm at. All right. I've been waiting one more minute. We are one more minute till the bottom of the hour, and then we're jumping into the news. Head first, bitches. Oh, yeah, fuck. SmackDown is moving to Fridays. God damn it. I didn't think about that. Whoops. Thank you for saying that, Nick. I mean, I would have realized that probably after the fact. Well, shit. I may have to change something then. I might still have to do it Fridays. Well, no, I'm not going to want to do it Fridays either. No, SmackDown won't be on yet. It would be really stupid to do it before Fridays. Or before SmackDown on Fridays. It might have to be a Saturday thing. Saturday will work the same way Friday would. The only reason I didn't choose Saturday is because I thought it was too late in the week. But it ain't if SmackDown airs the night before. Nick, thank you. No more TJIF. It's going to be TJIS. Because that's what we're going to have to do. It's going to have to be Saturday. This is why we have soft openings. This is why we have test runs. This is why you have to practice first. Because I would have been an idiot and announced this shit. I would have started the podcast in 2 Fridays from now. And then when SmackDown starts, I'd be like, oh, whoops. So yeah, that's the plan. All right, so everything I just said, scratch it. We're doing Saturdays. Yeah, and the Cheeto sandwich. And now we're not talking about that stuff. Oh, you can ask those all you want. We're not going to talk about them here. So anyway, okay, good. I'm glad we came to that realization, and I'm glad we came to the realization together. That's what we're here for, is to make mistakes together, and that is a fucking doozy. So awesome. Nick, thank you for setting me straight. I appreciate it. You are the chat room champ of the night. All right, let's get into news. All right, it's time to get into news. I'm going to pull up my notes. I got a lot of notes. Jesus. About 2.5 pages. Not many, but a lot. We're going to talk Jimmy Uso first. Jimmy Uso was arrested again for DUI. This time in Florida, I believe. This is crazy because, number one, on the Raw reunion show this past Monday, which we'll talk about in a minute, John Cena opened up the show and he had a segment with the Usos and Rikishi and I think the Revival. And he's cutting a promo with the Usos and he actually mentions both of their arrests. They've both been arrested before for various problems and talked about their mugshot, and the crowd kind of oohed and awed. You know, a little jab there. Pretty crazy to even mention that, especially when one of those arrests is centered around a DUI. Not something you really want to joke about. And then here it is, like literally 2 days later, and Jimmy is pulled over and arrested again. And I believe this is his third DUI. He was arrested back in February, if you remember, for disorderly conduct. I think he was in the car with Naomi. She got pulled over, and he got out of the car and started acting fucking crazy. And I think he was hammered, but he wasn't driving. So they just got him with disorderly conduct. I think he paid a fine, and that was the end of it. But he's been arrested for DUIs twice, 2011 and 2013, making this one his third. I don't know where you draw the line ethically or morally with drugs and alcohol. You know, why some things will get you a suspension on a wellness policy and some things will not. When it comes to the wellness policy, I'm guessing this is just simply drugs, or if you're actually drunk on the job. But otherwise, I don't think alcohol is a part of this. And I don't know if any conduct issues are written into the wellness agreements or the wellness policy. But wouldn't you think that 3 DUIs would warrant you some sort of a punishment from the company? The first couple of times this happened, nothing really happened to him at all. Every time anybody gets in trouble now, Jeff Hardy, one of the Usos, whoever it is, same statement is released by WWE every time. So-and-so is responsible for their own actions. That's it. That's all they say. So I was pretty silent about this on Twitter. I made a joke about, I mean, not a joke, but I tweeted that Jimmy needs to download fucking Uber. This guy makes millions of dollars, and he gets behind the wheel of a car putting God knows how many amount of human lives at risk with his drunken shit. And apparently the details of this DUI are sketch as fuck. He was a mess, apparently. Blowing 3 times more than the limit and all this shit. Just hammered off his ass. You know, that going 85 and a 45. What happens, you know? There's a parked car with 2 babies in the back, you know, and you smash into it. You know, this is okay with WWE. All they're going to say, he's responsible for his own actions. And it sucks because it puts his brother in a horrible spot. You know, if you punish Jimmy, you essentially punish Jay too. And Jay had nothing to do with it. Now, Jay is no saint. He had a DUI last year. Right? January of 2018, Jay was arrested for DUI. So he's done this shit before too. And you see this a little bit in the Samoan family. Some of them have problems. Umaga, infamously, you know, passed away from these same type of demons. And this is alcohol related. It seems like these days the talent overall is much better behaved as far as drugs and pills and shit like that. You know, back in the day, it was all about pain medicine, and we've seen the opiate crisis, you know, in this country especially, and how bad it is and how bad it was back in the day. You don't see a whole lot of that now. You have some drug issues, don't get me wrong. It still exists a little bit in WWE, you know, but it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. And I think for the most part, the talent is pretty responsible with that stuff, but I think they all drink and they all get hammered, and that's not against the rules. But when you're getting behind the wheel and you're potentially, or you are putting lives at risk and potentially ending lives just because you're too hammered to push the fucking Uber app on your phone. You got millions of dollars in the bank. You can't just call one of those black SUVs to pick your ass up and ride home in style. To me, that's insulting, you know, to be that well off and have the ability to be careful. You know, Ubers aren't cheap. You know, you're working at Taco Bell, maybe you can't afford taking Uber X's all over the place. You know, or what's the nice one called? I think it's Uber X. You know, but it's like, shit, if you're a WWE wrestler, I am going to be driven everywhere. You know, and if I do have a car, I'm not going to get in it with a drop of alcohol in my system at all. You know, because it's probably going to be a nice car, and I don't want to fuck it up. So to me, it would just be, to me, it's just horribly irresponsible, and I don't think that punishment would be out of the question. Twitter was kind of going nuts about it. Part of the reason why I stayed silent about it is because I didn't really care to dive into the debate, because it's just a rabbit hole, man. You know, once that happens, once you get somebody else feeling a different way, then it's two people exchange 50 tweets about the damn subject between each other. I saw a lot of that on Twitter over the last couple of days as it related to Jimmy Uso. And some people are defending him, you know, pretty viciously, and some are calling for his head, want him to be fired. You know, I don't know where it lies. I think punishment is definitely necessary here. Firing him, I don't know. You got to think about Jimmy. You know, they are that family is really interwoven in the company. You'd think that maybe there's going to be some exceptions made. Maybe they just punish him, slap him on the wrist. Hey, you're going to go to rehab. You know, we're going to send you to rehab. I don't know to what degree his alcoholism is. I don't know if this is a guy that absolutely gets hammered every night, or if he's just stupid and he drives every time he decides to get drunk. But if this is something where he's just drunk all the time, rehab might be necessary. You know, sometimes I don't believe if somebody gets pulled over, makes a mistake and gets a DUI, they went out to dinner, had 3 glasses of wine, get pulled over, blow the legal limit and get arrested. I don't think that person needs to go to rehab. But if this is happening time and time again, and you can't keep your shit straight, and you can't go anywhere without getting fucking hammered, and you don't have the ability to differentiate right from wrong and to know I should not get behind the wheel, you know, I think, you know, if I ever get that drunk, even when I'm wasted, I'm like, I should not be driving. I don't see how people think it's okay, especially if you've already had previous DUIs. You're a public figure. You're a WWE star. You know, if you do, I mean, the stakes are even higher for him, because if he does get arrested, the whole fucking world's going to know about it. You know, to me, I'd be terrified just for that reason. Like, oh shit, then I'm going to have to show my face back at TV on Monday and go in there with my head hanging down, walking past all my fellow WWE superstars just shaking their heads at me. And then I have to go into my come to Jesus meeting with management. I wouldn't want anything to do with that. Then your mug shots plastered all over TMZ. To me, he has so much reason not to drive, but he does it anyway. And I don't really have a whole lot of sympathy for him, whatever winds up happening here. I mean, I know he's probably got money, or he's got money, so he's probably got a pretty good lawyer. So jail time after 3 DUIs, I think, is likely for a normal person. Average, everyday Joe gets 3 DUIs. Well, I take that back. I actually have friends that have had 3 DUIs. But I think for most people, if you get 3 DUIs, you need to be doing some time, a little bit, because of, and think about your decisions. But he'll probably avoid that just based on, you know, what the legal system is like, and if you have money, you can get out of anything. But I definitely think he needs to be taught a lesson, maybe. You know, he just needs to never, ever, ever do this again. If it means he never picks up another drink or a drop of alcohol, if that's the only way he can not make stupid decisions, then that might be what he has to do. And it's a shame. I wish people could drink in moderation. I wish people could enjoy a few spirits and not be a fucking moron. But if you can't, maybe drinking is not for you. And maybe drinking is not for Jimmy Uso. And I think he should know better. I think he's old enough and mature enough and successful enough to have gotten this far in life and had the success that he had. It's so frustrating when you see somebody doing everything right with motivations to be a success, but they got these underbelly of demons. It's fucked up. So yeah, I'm definitely in the camp that says Jimmy Uso needs to be dealt with. I don't want him fired because I like the Usos tag team. I like the Usos tag team. They've been there 10 years. I'm kind of a fan of their family. I don't want to see them just completely slashed. And like I said, where does that leave Jay? Unless you find him a new tag team partner, there's plenty of other Samoans out there that WWE could go pick and grab from somewhere else. But would it be the same? It's like when Fatu left. When Rikishi left the Head Shrinkers. Or I'm sorry, Samu left the Head Shrinkers. How's he doing, by the way, Samu? He's very, very ill. They brought in Barbarian. And Barbarian's a great wrestler. Probably better and more athletic than Samu in a lot of ways, but he did not look right in that Samoan tag team, in that Head Shrinkers team. So I don't think, you can really replace Jimmy. I think they're brothers, they're twins. That's the whole fucking gimmick and the point. And I don't want to see that happen to the tag team or to Jey Uso. So I think if I'm in WWE's position, if I'm in management, he is being, maybe it's a fine, because maybe you can't really punish him on TV, make him job, because that's what's going to happen now if the Usos win a match. Oh, I guess WWE doesn't care that Jimmy drives drunk. That might not necessarily be the case. You got to think about Jey. So maybe they punish him in other ways. Monetarily would be a good option. Maybe they fine that guy $100,000. Now, if they're allowed to do that, I don't know. Hopefully it's written in the contract somewhere that they can fine him if they see fit. Maybe they fine him for conduct, detrimental to the company or whatever. Guys get suspended and fined like that all the time in NFL and NBA, although they're not independent contractors. So if that happens, we might not know about that. We might not hear about an internal punishment if they do something to Jimmy. So we don't know for sure. So hopefully, we can stay tuned to the more credible wrestling journalists like the Meltzers and the Saps and guys like that. And if we hear anything about any sort of punishment, that could be the direction they go, because it might just not be feasible to punish them on TV. They need the Usos there so they can punish them in other ways, and fining them might be a good way. You add a bunch of fines, you add a big WWE fine onto the assload of fucking legal fees this guy's probably paying to keep his ass out of jail. That might be a little bit of enough to motivate him to maybe make some better decisions. If not, send his ass to rehab. Take the Usos off TV for a month. What's the big deal? And then, or they could say, get one more, you're fired. Because you're probably not going to make any more TVs if you get one more, because you're definitely going to jail if you get 4 of these things. Or Vince could spank him, Joey G. Good suggestion there. So, yeah, not a good look for him. I think it definitely is upsetting to some fans because of the dangers that he poses driving like this, and many fans too. I had a couple of people tweeting me when all of this was breaking, saying, I lost a friend to a drunk driver. My aunt was killed by a drunk driver. Drunk drivers have touched every single one of our lives. We either are affected, it's like cancer almost. It's like you either know someone close or, know someone in your life somewhere that has dealt with shit like this. I've dealt with it. I had to be questioned by insurance people because a customer came into my bar about 15 years ago. He already had a few drinks somewhere else, like maybe 2 or 3. We served him 1, and he drove home after a few cocktails, legally drunk, but not hammered off his ass, but definitely buzzed. And there was a boy, a 16-year-old kid, broke down his car, had a flat tire. The kid's dad came to change the tire on the side of the road. No street lights, empty country road. They're basically changing the tire in the dark because the kid didn't know how to change his own tire. I don't know how to change a tire either, no big deal. But the dad drove to help his son out and got hit by this drunk driver that was in my restaurant. And, the family, they could have came after my restaurant. They could have came after me. But luckily, when, the smoke cleared, we really weren't responsible. The bartender, he wasn't clearly, he seemed totally fine. He didn't look drunk, because normally if you see somebody that's slurring their words and they're a mess and they're falling down, you just don't serve them. Plain and simple. Nope, sorry. Be on your way. We don't give a shit. We'll tell anybody no. And this guy just sat down at the bar and said, give me a gin and tonic. And he drank it and killed somebody on his way home. And it's a shame. And he should not be doing that either, because this guy had a job and it was sad. He had a wife and a 2-year-old son. And he was going to be going to jail for manslaughter for however many years it was. I think he got 7 or 10 years or something like that. And he was a lawyer, or not a lawyer. I forgot what he was. He had a really good job, had money, had a house, a wife, a new baby, everything. He had his whole world ahead of him. And then bam, one night it all changes. And think of Jimmy, him and Naomi, how their life could be affected, if something were to happen to him like that. So he should think. Everybody should think. It's pretty fucked up what he did, especially since he's done this twice before. I'm a big believer. I personally have never in my life, and I'm in my 40s, I've never had a DUI. but I don't know very many people who haven't gotten them. They're kind of common. I believe that I believe everybody deserves a break. You know, I do think there are situations like I laid out before where you just go out to dinner, have a couple of drinks, enough to put you over the legal limit, but you're really not drunk, and then you get pulled over, they blow you. Oh shit, they blow you. They make you blow. They arrest your ass and you go to jail. You learn your lesson. You never do it again. You say, I never want to be back in that place ever again, and I'm going to call Ubers for the rest of my life, and then it's never an issue. But you have other people that just can't handle their shit, that take it to another degree, and they get another one and another one and another one, and they never learn. You know? Never learn. So, yeah, Catherine C. Exactly. One of your high school classmates was killed by a drunk driver, 16 years old. Yeah, I got a couple of gnarly drunk driving stories that I can't even talk about, but it's affected me too. You know, so it's messed up. You know, and Kyle, sorry to hear that, man. But you see what I mean? You know, it's just it's just so stupid because it's alcohol. You know, Jeff Hardy is going through the same thing too. The dude is finally kicked to the drugs. You know, he's somehow managed to stay away from the hard stuff, but he's drinking. He got the DUI. He got DUI a few months ago. What just happened to him recently? Drunken disorderly conduct or drunken public or whatever. So, that's within a year. DUI, drunken public. So he's drinking his ass off these days. Yeah, make you blow. Get it right. So yeah, it seems like a lot of the talent is starting to revert back to alcohol, where in the 90s, it was all about the pills and the GHB and all that crap that they were doing, and now it seems like all the wrestlers stay pretty much away from that, but they all get hammered. And if they do, that's fine. You want to get hammered, fine. Just make it to the show, make your match, and don't throw up in the locker room and fuck it. Drink all you want, like I give a shit. Just call a goddamn Uber. Simple as that. But anyway, that is pretty much the deal with Jimmy Uso there, and we'll have to see if WWE does, after the outrage of the fans and stuff, if maybe they do, something does come out of some sort of an internal punishment. We'll see. Speaking of WWE and stupid shit they always do and say, WWE had their earnings conference call. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Vince McMahon was asked about moving away from the PG rating and maybe getting a little bit edgier and maybe going to TV 14. And he said no, that they're going to get a little bit more edgy, but not leave the PG umbrella, which is what we figured. I didn't think they were going to go back to TV 14. I thought they were going to try to get a little bit nastier, but remain under the PG format, which is exactly what they're doing. And he says a couple of funny things, and he brings up All Elite Wrestling, and he says, we're not going to go back to blood and guts. He said, we're not going to go back to what we graduated from in the Attitude Era. And we're not going to go back to being blood and guts like our potential competitor is. Which is crazy because they're not blood and guts. They're just a fucking wrestling company. And it's so typical Vince because there's no way you can convince me that Vince sits down and watches any All Elite Wrestling. If he's seen anything, he was shown it by someone else. And what he saw probably had some blood in it. He probably saw the Cody chair shot, or the hell else have we had a real bloody moment? Or the Cody and Dustin match. Jesus. He was probably shown that. Say, hey, Vince, look at this. And he's like, oh, goddamn, blood everywhere. Not every match is blood. So the fact that Vince thinks that is funny because he's sorely mistaken. And I hope that's not the overall opinion of the company. Just having a company that's not scared to have blood doesn't mean you're blood and guts. ECW was described like that back in the day, but even they weren't total blood and guts. They had some elements of wrestling on there. Guys like Eddie Guerrero and Al Snow and Mysterio and Psychosis and Malenko and Jericho, all those guys passed through ECW to give it, a little bit of a touch that it's not all thumbtacks through the eyeball. And Vince thinking this about All Elite Wrestling, he doesn't want to underestimate them and get an idea in his head of what they are, blow them off, not take them seriously, and then he gets hit in the mouth. But, Vince, when it comes to WWE's management, everybody's got keeping tabs on All Elite Wrestling. You can tell they've already ran a show head-to-head up against them as it is. All Elite Wrestling really waited a long time to announce what night of the week their show was going to come out on. And WWE may counter this now by putting NXT on Fox Sports or something like that. They're going to try to head them off at every pass, and that's what competition is all about. And WWE's going to have the upper hand on everything because they own everything. They can do whatever the fuck they want, it seems like. They can put a fucking wrestling ring in the middle of the football field during halftime of the Super Bowl and have a match there. They can do it if they wanted. I swear, it'd probably just take a phone call. So they're so powerful that, I don't know, I've said this about All Elite Wrestling before. I was like, they need not poke the bear here. Let's not piss them off and have them cock block AEW every chance they get just to be spiteful. That's very WWE. That's very much what they do. And I don't want to see them do that too much to All Elite Wrestling because I want to see them grow. I don't want to see their growth stunted by this asshole monopoly that owns wrestling, just cutting them off at every pass. Messed up. So I think Vince McMahon's comments were ignorant, stupid, but nothing that upset me. I laughed at it. Shout out to Delexman, another YouTuber. DM'd me yesterday. And he DM'd me and he said Vince McMahon said on this call that AEW is blood and guts and we're more sophisticated than them and all this shit. And he wanted to know my thoughts, and my thoughts were awesome. That's exactly what I texted back, or I typed back. I just typed awesome because I thought that was awesome. That's a very, very Vince McMahon thing to say, and that's a very, very Vince McMahon opinion to have. That's the way Vince is. That's what Vince does. That's how stupid he is. He was the same way back in the day. He had no fucking idea about WCW or ECW. He didn't watch any of that shit. Bruce did. He just had no idea. He did not think that anybody who didn't previously work, Kevin Dunn is like this too. Anybody that didn't previously work in WWE, the wrestling audience isn't going to know who they are. They put a goddamn pair of pantyhose on Terry Funk's head and gave him a chainsaw because nobody was going to know who he was. Fuck that company. But anyway, Vince saying that didn't make me mad. Vince saying that didn't make me want to make a video ripping them apart. I don't give a shit what Vince McMahon thinks. And when he says something like that, I'm not surprised. Have you seen Vince before? Have you heard him speak? Have you heard him in interviews? I think you have. So as a wrestling fan, I was flabbergasted that many people were upset by his comments. So what? Some old man says dumb shit? Who cares? To me, it was, like I said, awesome. And I think it's awesome that Vince thinks that. And I want him to continue to think that. That's what I want him to think. I want him to think that that's some blood and guts show on TNT. I want him to think that they are no threat at all. Because the more he thinks that, the more chance we have of WWE maybe backing off of them. But I think with those sharks in their management team, that's not going to happen. And AEW is, they're uphill battle, man. They're going to be in one for a long time. It's going to always be that way for them. It's always going to be an obstacle where WWE doesn't really have the same obstacles. So we'll see. Speaking of All Elite Wrestling, did y'all see? It's on my thumbnail. You had to have seen this ridiculous TV Guide ad that they did promoting the Wednesday show. This shit looked like Friends. It looked like some reality show. You've seen it, right? They're all standing there, big photo shoot. They all got individual photos. It's the Young Bucks. It's Omega, Cody Brandy. Karma is in there. Jungle Boy. I'm not sure who else. Big ass photo of everybody. But they're all in suits. And with the rest, to me, this was another heavily debated thing on Twitter. I exchanged a few tweets, I think, with Kevin Castle and Joey Numbers about this the other day. Is why would they, for a company that tells everybody that they're going to be more about wrestling, they're not going to shy away from the term wrestler. WWE is sports entertainment. We're wrestling. They're very proud of that. At least that's what they're saying. But then they do this photo shoot in TV Guide. I don't know who fucking buys TV Guide these days, but that's crazy enough in and of itself. But you would think that if you're trying to introduce a new wrestling product and a lot of new faces to a brand new set of eyeballs on TNT, a much more mainstream audience, many of which probably don't even watch wrestling, including WWE, and you're showing them that, it just seems like you should have some wrestling element to it. Yes, they all look very nice and very sexy, but that's about it. You can't, what about that photo says this is a wrestling show? To me, it looks like they're all in this house living together and the winner gets brandy or something. Or Tony Khan gives him a rose in the fucking finale. Or it's a sitcom with Cody Rhodes as the lead and Kenny Omega as Kramer. I mean, and Karma is Newman. Never mind. It just doesn't, it looks like anything but wrestling. So I don't mind it. They don't have to be all in their gear and in the ring and sweaty and with a championship belt, but they have to have something. If they want to be in suits and dress like that, fine. Have a wrestling ring in the background. Take that brand new AEW belt, which should be in this photo. It really should, but Hangman and Jericho aren't even in this photo, so I guess that would be stupid. But I think it would be cool to have the AEW belt as the centerpiece, maybe laying on the ground in front of everybody, or on a table in the middle, or something. Put one person in a lucha mask. Can't you do that? I don't know. Give it some sort of an element that makes you say, oh, that's a wrestling show. But there's nothing about that photo that says wrestling at all, and I just think it was kind of dumb. I'm not mad about it like so many others were. This thing was heavily talked about on Twitter, and I'm like, much like the Vince McMahon comments on All Elite Wrestling, I'm like, is this even important? Is this even worth the argument to talk about? Like, so what? All Elite Wrestling made a stupid cheesy ass photo where they all look like a bunch of dorks. I don't give a shit. I just think it's kind of dumb that they didn't incorporate any wrestling elements into the photo, especially when it's in TV Guide. Come watch our new show. Are they trying to trick people into watching it? Is that what they're doing? I mean, what the F? I mean, do they want people to say, oh, let's tune in to whatever the hell that show is, and then they see it's wrestling, and they're going to be like, oh, no, never mind. Then the viewers are gone anyway. To me, it doesn't make any sense. It don't make no sense. So, yeah, I think that was a little bit silly, and I just wish there would have been something, wrestling-related in that photo, and if they do more promo spots and everything plugging the show, you would think that TNT is going to be behind them. They better. I hope they are. I hope they don't treat AEW the way Spike TV treated ECW, or even TNT treated WCW at the end there. I hope they have the support of the network and they advertise it and they promote it, plug it hard, and try to make some better decisions when it comes to advertising your new show. They're and I don't want, and I'm a big there seems to be another line that's drawn amongst the wrestling fans, which we've seen, with the AEW fans, and and they're adamant that they're going to be the greatest wrestling company, and the WWE is going to be dead in a year. As ridiculously stupid as that is, you have and the equivalent of that stupidity on the other side with people in WWE's camp that think AEW is nothing, Bush League, minor league, t-shirt company, all those other descriptions we've heard. That's dumb too. I think it's so ridiculous for a wrestling fan to root against AEW. If you're not rooting for All Elite Wrestling success, I don't even think you should call yourself a wrestling fan at all. So I just wish kind of the two sides could get along, and we could hope that both companies are good, because AEW being good will result in WWE being good and vice versa. That's the way competition kind of works. I lived through all that during the Attitude Era. I can speak for that. I remember how that was. So I think both companies can push each other, and that's what we should all root for. But I don't want to misunderstand it. If I praise AEW or shit on AEW, I don't want anybody to think that that's the side that I'm on. I'm just trying to call things fair. And one problem that I do potentially see for All Elite Wrestling is all of these wrestler executives. I just think that is a recipe for disaster. It always has been. And I don't know why it would be any different now. Well, all these guys are friends. So was the Clique. They were friends too. And they weren't that well received. Nowadays when you look back and, some of the shit that they did. You got these guys in executive roles. You're not going to be able to avoid drama. Something's going to happen behind the scenes or at a wrestling show, or there's going to be heat. And then somebody's push and their spot in the company is going to be influenced by that heat because of the people that make the decisions and all this. You got Cody Rhodes, one of the top stars in the company, probably will eventually hold that belt as playing the role of Triple H in this company, with Brandy being the Stephanie. Cody's going to win that belt, and then it's going to be like, well, he booked himself. Then next thing you know, it's going to be Cody carrying around the shovel, not Triple H. You got the Bucks there. You got Omega. They're all in suits. They're all so just involved in the behind the scenes process there. I just think that in time it could lead to some falling outs. It could lead to some trouble, hiccups along the way, shit like that. I could be wrong. They could all get along marvelously, and that'll never be an issue. But I just am concerned with the way I know wrestling to be and the way we know egos to be, that I don't know how you can start a wrestling company with that many current roster members involved in the creative process and the management and, you know, producers and executives and all that stuff, how you can have that and not have problems down the road. It's never gone well. I mean, this dates back, man, you can go back to the territory days. People, Vern Gagne was 100 times worse than Triple H. Vern Gagne should have had the shovel, not Triple H. Vern Gagne is a fat ass old man, bald old man, beating guys. It was just crazy. Just constantly put himself over and over and over and over. But territory days were different. It's kind of what you had to do. The only person you could really count on is yourself. So you kind of had to put the belt on yourself. But, you know, Vern and so many others are such a good example of that. And here it is carrying over. It's still 2019. You got Triple H still in the ring and on top of WWE. And will probably assume the role of Vince McMahon one day. And then you got Cody trying to create his own little minor league version of that with All Elite Wrestling. He's like a discount Triple H. But I think Cody's cooler than Triple H. And I can't wait to meet Cody. He's going to be on the Jericho Cruise this coming January. And we are, exactly, excellent point, Down Ice. We already had the drama with Pac and Hangman from Double or Nothing. That match was set. It was on the card. Dragon Gate title being involved there, and Pac not wanting to lose, and he's probably right. It created a situation where they just had to scrap the match, and stuff like that will probably happen more and more when, you know, you got guys like Jon Moxley under contract to AEW, but he's the U.S. champion in New Japan. So just all of that seems like a lot to manage. All of that seems like a lot to organize, and I would not want to be in that position of not only trying to write TV, book storylines, book people's availability. That's going to be an issue. Try to keep everybody happy, not at each other's throats. Everybody needs to be on the same team because everybody sees opportunities now. Oh, I'm somewhere else other than WWE. I'm getting paid. You know, somebody like Shawn Spears, for example, this is my chance. You know, those people are going to be fighting and clinging to hang on to those chances and those spots. So that's great. It creates a competitive environment, brings out the best in talent. But in the long run, when you have a company that's not, you know, they don't have any infrastructure yet. They haven't ran for very long. They haven't even had their first TV show. They haven't had lifetime employees. You got people working for WWE, been there 20, 30, 40 plus years, some of them, that have been there the whole time, working behind the scenes, managing and being the internal gears of that company. You don't have that in All Elite Wrestling. So how do you manage the egos, the schedules, you know, all that stuff that I mentioned? It can't be easy. And it's going to be... it's not going to be all smooth sailing. They're probably going to have some speed bumps, hiccups along the way. And I think we need to do our best to do a combination of criticizing them when necessary. Okay, AEW, that was stupid. But at the same time, let them cut their teeth. They need to be allowed and allotted some mistakes. They're going to make some. You know, Nitro ran their very first show from the Mall of America. Oh, God, they're fucking escalators and shit in the background. I mean, it was an interesting looking setting, but it's like the mall? Nitro at the mall? A company that's going to overtake WWE in a year's time is running at the mall? So mistakes will be made, and they'll probably learn. I just hope they learn from their mistakes, and I hope the mistakes they make aren't too catastrophic and aren't too damaging, and they don't have any issues with their like world title right off the bat. I don't want to see the very first ever champion have to get injured and forfeit the title. You want to create a history. You want to create some sort of a legacy, you know, with the title and with the brand and start getting it over. And I think that takes time. And I think they're allowed to make a few mistakes. They're allowed to do a couple things stupid. And if they run a TV show that we feel was poorly laid out, poorly written, poorly executed, whatever, I will probably be one of the ones standing up saying, okay, you're right. You're not wrong about these critiques, but I think we need to cut them some slack. They'll get better, you know. My live streams look like ass when I first started. You know, everybody just gets better as you learn as you go. I mean, that's a much bigger presentation than this shitty YouTube channel, but you know what I mean? It just takes time. You're not going to have your shit together right off the bat. And I think if they do a few things wrong or things that we would have done differently, I'm going to cut them some slack, at least for a while. You know, if they run for a year and it's the same shit and they haven't increased in popularity or value at all, then I'm like, okay, you know, you better start doing something else different or bringing in somebody else. And one thing I think they can do right up front, and that's another thing that's all lumped in here to my All Elite Wrestling news and comments, is bring in CM Punk. Now, CM Punk was officially announced for StarCast. Now, that's huge. Now, the whole weekend is taking place in Chicago anyway. And I've said right up front, right from the start, that where you bring in CM Punk is it All Out. You know, it's got to be in Chicago. It's in the same venue that All In was in. And I think Punk should have shown up there or at this one. Double or Nothing would have made no sense. Chicago is where he needs to be. But I'm kind of skeptical that he's going to show up at All Out, because I think if he was, they wouldn't have him at StarCast kind of thing. They would want to keep it as tight-lipped as possible. Or this could be a reverse work. This could be the work of all works. I don't know. But I've thought all along that Punk debuting for All Elite Wrestling would be such a win-win for everybody involved. It would be a win for CM Punk. It would be a win for AEW, and it would be a win for us. Everybody benefits from this. There's zero downside. CM Punk, I don't know if his feelings have changed, but it seems like he still wants nothing to do with WWE, harbors a lot of resentment towards them. I think if he showed up at All Out, cut some sort of a promo, he'd get he would blow up the wrestling world. He would blow up Twitter. We would all be talking about it. I'd have to come up here and make 3 videos about it. That's how crazy it would be. Everybody would be going nuts about it. It would just explode the wrestling world. And for once, WWE would not dominate the wrestling headlines. So that's a plus. Also, it would be a nice big fuck you from CM Punk to WWE. Hey guys, remember me? F off and your stupid doctor too. Take that Z-Pack, stick it up your dick hole. He's got to love that, right? And it would be a huge coup for All Elite Wrestling to get him. You know, after Kenny Omega was pretty much the hottest free agent and they signed him, not WWE. Now you get CM Punk. He debuts, he crashes the main event or something, maybe after Jericho and Page. He attacks the winner. Kind of like Kevin Nash did to him, right? At SummerSlam a few years ago. He doesn't necessarily have to go full pipe bomb like Moonlight O'Brien is recommending, but I think he should say some things that are controversial and we'll get a few oohs and ahs from the crowd. I mean, it's been 5 years. Is he really going to does he want to come out there and talk for 5 minutes about WWE? To me, that would look like Punk and All Elite Wrestling is up the asses of WWE. Punk definitely needs to take a few shots, couple of quick jabs, couple of little insults, maybe a shot at Triple H or Vince or Stephanie or somebody there, but then also say, I'm here, I'm focused on AEW, I want to get back in wrestling and blah, blah, blah. I'm here to kick ass and, you know, not make it about I hate WWE, because I think that's a mistake. I think All Elite Wrestling needs to not hang on WWE's every move, every word, everything they do. WCW is like that. They were very much into reacting to what WWE did, where All Elite Wrestling, I think, needs to maybe do a little bit of that. You know, Cody smashed up the Triple H chair at Double or Nothing. You know, little things like that I'm okay with, as long as they don't take it overboard. It really rubbed me the wrong way. And Dusty was a big part of this. Really rubbed me the wrong way when TNA did that cookie thing with WWE. You know, and I'm like, you guys have such a good product over there. You got a great little company, a great minor league company with a lot of good wrestlers there. Why are you fucking bringing cookies to WWE? Get them out of your head. It's like you're obsessed with them. And they were always like that. That was their downfall. It was WCW's downfall. You know, it's like there's got to be a balance to paying attention to your competition, but not being obsessed with your competition. And I think when you become obsessed with your competition, you fail. You fail bad. Just dudes and gals, if a gal is obsessed with a dude, chances are he wants nothing to do with her and she loses, and vice versa. Oh, and trust me, the last thing a girl wants is some desperate, obsessed dude. You're going to get the fucking Heisman. It's not a good recipe for success to do that. So I think with All Elite Wrestling, there's got to be that balance there, because you can't ignore WWE completely, because that's no fun for us. We want them to take a few shots at them here and there. Just limit it. Just be careful, space it out, and don't make it the focal point of your show. Don't make it what you're known for. Oh, I want to tune into All Elite Wrestling tonight just to see what they're going to say about WWE. You don't want that. You know, you want your own product, your own identity. You want fans tuning in to see you, not to see you react to what the other company is doing. And yeah, WWE wants to fire shots back, like James Rosano said. Triple H at the Hall of Fame mentioned him twice. called him a pissant company when he was talking about Billy Gunn, or talking to Billy Gunn, and even said that he said we would buy them or something like that too. So he mentioned them a couple of times, which is pretty funny. So they need to learn, now that we've had a couple of wrestling companies fall by the wayside, WCW and TNA, the two biggest competitors to WWE. You know, ECW doesn't really count. They had kind of a working relationship with WWE and love was in the air there. But with WCW and TNA, I think All Elite Wrestling should take a good hard look at those two companies, especially TNA, since they're a little bit more recent, and say, okay, they had the recipe. They had all the pieces in place. They had talent. They had TV. They had fan support. They had everything. They had pay-per-view. They had everything. What happened? Oh, we're bringing Hogan and Bischoff, you know, just to be the face of our TV and bring everybody out there. That first episode of TNA Impact on Monday nights, remember when they were stupid enough to go head-to-head with Raw? I don't care how bad Raw's product was. That fucking company wasn't going to do shit to them in the ratings on Monday nights head-to-head. You know, they just weren't there. And that first episode on Monday night looked like Raw reunion. It was all of the NWO, and it was Hogan, and it was all these guys. It was like, God. You know, you got AJ and Joe and Angle, and you got this talent, this locker room full of talent bursting at the seams. And you got Hall and Nash out there? Motherfucker. Sting. You know, Sting's awesome. I'm not going to badmouth Sting, but, you know, you need some veterans in there. You need some veteran guys, but you don't need all veteran guys. You know, you need the Kurt Angles. You need the Stings. You need the Jeff Jarrett sprinkled in there somewhere. You know, but you don't need it overrun by it. And you certainly don't need to concern yourself with what the competition that's way too big for you to be picking a fight with is doing. And I think TNA made that mistake, like going to Monday nights, actually thinking that enough fans were going to give a shit. How long did that last, by the way? 3 months or something? Not even. And think about how bad, Joey hit the nail on the head here. Think about how bad Raw was during that time. That was right before I started doing commentaries and shit on YouTube for fun. And yeah, I was barely watching. I didn't give a shit. Sean retired that year, I think, or was that 11? Yeah, 2010. And it was the new era. It was ushered in. You know, Sheamus was getting on the map, and Jack Swagger. Jack Swagger's awesome, but back then nobody gave a shit. And nobody gave a shit about Sheamus either, and guys like that. It just wasn't a good-looking product. And even that shitty product was 100 times better than, you know, or going to get 10 times better ratings than what TNA was getting. And it didn't last. Christopher Daniels. Yes, I am Christopher Daniels. This is my YouTube channel. Welcome. I have a goatee on the YouTube channel, but when I wrestle, I shave it. Yeah, Monty Brown. Monty Brown had some potential. And he didn't do anything in WWE either. They brought him in, right? Change his name. Oh, I didn't know SCU was old, according to Vince. Ha, that's funny. Anyway, what's next on my list here after we talked about the Punk? We're still talking about the CM Punk stuff. Excuse me, because I didn't even talk about what he said. You know, the whole reason I was segueing into that is to talk about CM Punk's interview with ESPN. Now, I think he should come there, and I laid out all my reasons for that, why it would be so good for him to show up at All Out, and why it would be so good for him, AEW, and the wrestling fans. Everybody wins with this, so he should do it. But he did an interview with ESPN, and he's still CM Punk. You know, he's still the same. He's an asshole. You know, I love CM Punk. I'm a CM Punk fan. I want to see him come back. But this guy, man, it would be so hard to be friends with him. He's ruined relationships. He's not even friends with Colt Cabana anymore. But some of the shit he said he was vague as fuck about everything, and he was very hesitant to commit to everything. And he talked about them reaching out to him. He's like, yeah, I've had conversations with them, and they've texted me, and they've basically offered. And he claimed that he got an offer to join All Elite Wrestling via text message. And he's like, oh, you'd think about somebody would call you and offer you that in person or something like that. That'd be a better way to do business. And he's claiming that they're bothering him, and then he's worried that if he talks to one of them, he goes, if I talk to one of the Young Bucks, and then word's going to get back to Tony Khan, and then he's going to tell everybody that he has a great relationship with me. And so he was basically voicing some of his concerns with talking too much to the All Elite Wrestling guys because it might be construed the wrong way. But he's just being super hesitant. I don't know what his deal is. They would clearly pay him a lot of money. He'd have to do nothing to show up there and do a run-in, cut a promo, work 4 matches in the next 8 months. He'd literally have to do nothing to get probably close to a Brock Lesnar payday. So I don't know why he's not doing this. So I think maybe he's trying to throw us all off the track, make it sound like he's not interested. He's going to do the StarCast appearance, and that's it. And then maybe he shows up at All Out as a surprise at the last minute. I don't know. But after he says all that stuff, Cody responded in a Twitter Q&A. Responded yesterday or today. And he tweeted that he wouldn't be surprised if CM Punk went back to WWE. And he defended himself. He goes, yes, I did text him whenever I couldn't contact him in person, but we've also spoken. You know, he's like, I didn't really offer him a contract in a text message. You know, he's basically, hey, you want to come work for us? So CM Punk, as usual, seems extremely difficult to work with and deal with. And as much as I would love for him to come into All Elite Wrestling, if I was Cody or the Bucks, I wouldn't. It would just be a pain in the ass to have to call him because he's going to be a dick about something, you know, and you got to be so worried that some little thing is going to piss him off. I saw a shoot interview with Hornswoggle like a year ago or something like that. And he said, me and CM Punk used to be bros. He won't even talk to me now because somebody like asked for his phone number and I gave it to him and he got all mad and just little typical or little simple things that one of his friends would do that wouldn't even upset a normal friend. And even if it did, you'd work it out. You know, he just like severs ties with him. He went on Colt Cabana's podcast and took a shit on the face of WWE. Colt Cabana gets sued, you know, and he's like, oh, you're on your own. Just, oh my God, you know, I got all this money. Fuck you. We're not friends anymore. I can't remember what happened with their falling out. But then, you know, when WWE or WWE's doctor took him to court for like slander or defamation or whatever it was, I don't think CM Punk paid for any of his legal fees and shit like that. It's just, my God, he just seems difficult to deal with, and I just wish he wasn't. I wish he was a little cooler. I wish he was a little bit more trusting of people. I know he's had shit happen to him in his life and his childhood and everything like that, and he seems like a very difficult person to open up. But damn, he is a pain in the ass. But I hope something gets worked out, and I hope this is the work of all works. I hope that him and Cody are doing this together. He said, I'm going to go on this interview and maybe passively aggressively say that I'm not real happy with the way you're recruiting me. And then you say that you think I'm going back to WWE and we'll get everybody thinking in one direction. And then bam, I'll show up at All Out. It might be the only way to make it a surprise at this point. Because if he's already booked for StarCast, is it really a stretch to think that he would show up at All Out? So maybe they're trying to get the fans thrown off the trail a little bit so we're not expecting it as much. That could be what they're doing here. But knowing Punk, this is probably legit. He probably is fucking pissy about everything. Nobody can get him. You have to like tiptoe up to him. Mr. Punk, is it okay if I talk to you? Fucking Mr. Asshole. So yeah, whenever I hear stories like that about CM Punk, it just drives me crazy. I'm like, why does he have to be like that? He's such a cool dude otherwise. He's very chill, great head on his shoulders. He's smart. He's not a moron like Jimmy Uso getting pulled over for DUIs left and right. There's so many smart things about CM Punk that I really like, but his attitude sometimes is like, dude, do you have a problem with everybody? You know, he just seems like he has a problem with everybody. You know, everybody pisses him off. Everybody rubs him the wrong way or does something, and he takes everything so personally. And I'm like, just fucking shake it off. God damn. I am a huge believer, and I've said this before to fans all the time throughout the years. I'm a huge believer in the phrase, pick your battles. You know, just don't waste your time, you know, just think about it before, like, especially with like Twitter, before you engage in a Twitter war, ask yourself if it's worth it. You know, that's why I saw so much chatter, you know, about All Elite Wrestling's photo shoot and Vince McMahon's comments. I'm like, I think it's stupid. I agree with everybody, what they're saying, but I'm like, is it really worth 20 tweets about? Like, I don't give a fuck. So, or Mr. Brooks, I should say. He's always got to bring up that he's straight edge. Yeah, I think he's still straight edge to this day. I don't know how AJ Lee puts up with him. Jesus. My God. But anyway, I think that pretty much does it for the news that I have written down. I want to talk a little bit about Raw Reunion. I want to talk about Smackdown. And I also want to preview SummerSlam. And I want to pitch an idea for The Undertaker for his retirement match, something that I've already talked about before, but I want to elaborate on it now and maybe get a little bit of input from you guys. But first, we're going to talk about Raw Reunion. Let me take a drink of this water. Actually, let me take a sip of this beer, too. I agree, Tom Bonaldi, or Bombaldil, I can't say your name. I'm going to call you Tom. He definitely needs to learn the value of forgiveness, 100%. What is our audience before I jump into Raw Reunion real quick? We got anybody in here watching? 160 people, not bad. Still not at 100 likes yet. Come on, y'all. Help me out. Hook a brother up with a like and make sure you subscribe. And let me know what you think about this new podcast format. And if you want to know how it's going to look moving forward and what all of my plans are, skip to the beginning of this video. I spend like the first 15, 20, even 30 minutes, I think, talking about a lot of my plans for the podcast, the channel, how this is going to look going forward, how it's going to subtly change as we go forward, and how I'm still kind of in the development stages for it. And also, I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, I do have a new, I'm going to be having a new intro made just for the Winged Eagle podcast. The one that I had a guy working on one for me, and I didn't really like what he delivered, so he's trying to tweak it. If I am not happy with it, I may look elsewhere for somebody else to develop a custom theme song and voiceover intro and shit like that. And I'm sparing no expense on that. I'm paying a few bucks for it. So that might not be ready until this thing launches closer to September if I don't like what winds up coming back to me this week. That's the other update that I may have forgotten to mention in the beginning. But now that the news is out of the way and all that, and I've peeked at the chat, everybody is still here, right? And y'all can still hear me? Nice. All right, let's get into a Raw reunion this past Monday. I don't want to get into the results. I actually don't think, based on my notes here, I don't think I've talked about any wrestling matches on the show. I just want to talk about the legends and what we saw and what these shows are about and what the point of them is. The Raw reunion show kind of came out of nowhere. They announced it a couple of weeks before, and it seemed like that was just USA Network saying we need to pop a rating and let's do a reunion show, bring out all these legends. And we've seen this a million times. The legends, they had legends out the ass for this thing. They had all of DX. They had Road Dogg, or not all of DX. They were missing Billy. Sans Billy. But we had Road Dogg, we had X-Pac, Triple H and Shawn. We had Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. We had Eric Bischoff, RVD, Santino Marella, Rikishi, Ron Simmons, Mark Henry, The Godfather, Alundra Blaze, Booker T, Tori Wilson, Kelly Kelly, Eve Torres, who looked amazing, Candice Michelle, Ted DiBiase, Caitlyn, Lillian, The Boogeyman, Jimmy Hart, Kurt Angle, and a few others. Those were the legends kind of on hand. Now, I mentioned earlier on when we talked about Jimmy Uso. John Cena opened up the show with the Usos. They did a nice little segment there. Rikishi came out and backed up the Usos in a match with the Revival. I forgot how the fuck that went. But Rikishi hung out there at ringside. I think they even danced maybe at the end. I forgot what happened there. But Cena and Usos opened up the show, and that comment that Cena made about the Usos' arrests was very crazy considering what would happen 2 days later. We had DX and Seth Rollins kind of joining forces to fend off the club. They're called the OC now, so Gallows, Anderson, and AJ. They've got new shirts made, OC, and that's going to be the name of their group. I would like to see some additions to that group, namely Finn Balor in the future. Finn's got his hands full right now, which we'll talk about in a minute. But all in all, that was just not that special of a moment. Okay, so what? DX and the club are back in the ring together. They did this at Raw 25, but they were all friends. This time, DX and Seth Rollins are fighting off the OC. And what made me the most mad about this is that Shawn Michaels and AJ Styles were in the same ring and they didn't even punch each other. They didn't even touch. And on Raw, during the Raw stream, I'm like, what the fuck? This is the closest we're ever going to get to this match. Can the two of these guys please interact? But they didn't. And then, when we saw what would happen on Smackdown, that might be the reason why they didn't interact on Monday Night Raw. Because the fans would say, oh my God, we want to get Shawn Michaels and AJ. And then they would do the Dolph thing on Smackdown. And I have a whole lot to say about Dolph and Shawn on Smackdown later on. We had a backstage segment with Eric Bischoff making an appearance. He was actually making the drive from his house in Wyoming all the way to Connecticut to start his new job. He was tweeting pictures of him traveling with his dog, making the long journey out to Connecticut. So he's there now. He was on TV. He was in a backstage segment with Mike and Maria. Eve Torres was there, Caitlyn, Jimmy Hart, and Ron Simmons. And Ron Simmons did the damn, but this time through the megaphone. We had a shit ton of 24/7 title changes. I don't know how many in total, but I know my favorite 24/7 title changes of last Monday night was Patterson and Briscoe, because they traded the 24/7 hardcore title back in the day. As a matter of fact, I think they even had the evening gown match on like pay-per-view, did they not? For the hardcore title? Or was it just an evening down match? I'm pretty sure the hardcore title was involved in that somewhere. But both Patterson and Briscoe won the title on Monday, and that warmed my heart. We saw a lot of title changes without any physicality. Patterson was already laying on the ground, and he was pinned. And Briscoe, I think, got rolled up when he lost it. You could barely even tell anything happened. So that was kind of stupid. But we also had Kelly winning the title, and I apologize and forgive me. I forget the order of which these happened, but Kelly won the 24/7 title, so I think she was the first woman to hold it. We thought it would be Carmella. It turned out to be Kelly instead. Candice Michelle, who was dressed in a very strange outfit, also won the 24/7 title. Medusa won the 24/7 title, or Alundra Blaze, excuse me. And then, I knew they were going to do this. I called it out during the stream on Monday. I said, she's going to throw that shit in the trash. And sure enough, they might have even gone to commercial. They come back, she's got the belt, she's walking out to the stage, and she's got the trash can, and she's about to dump the 24/7 title in the trash can when out comes the $1 Million Man, who buys the 24/7 title from her. So he buys it. Unfortunately, Andre's not alive for him to give it to, but he keeps it, and then I think Drake, I think, jumps into the limo. I might have this right. I think $1 Million Man is like leaving, and then you hear some commotion in the limo. Drake Maverick pops out with the belt. He's won the belt back, and then he's immediately rolled up by R-Truth, who gets the belt back, dives in the limo with Drake Maverick's wife, and the limo drives off, and Drake is screaming for his baby. My baby, my baby. Oh, and my wife's in there too. Even tweeted out like a missing person's poster with the belt as the centerpiece, and then underneath it says also missing, and a picture of his wife. So she's an incredible good sport about this. I think maybe Drake Maverick's wife and Mike Kanellis need to get together. I think they can both do better. But that whole thing was weird. The 24/7 title for me is hit and miss. Some weeks I think it's incredibly entertaining, and how can it not be with R-Truth involved? But sometimes I think they get a little ahead of themselves, or they go a little overboard with some of the skits and they don't come off real well. But I had nothing to complain about this, even though they were kind of shitty, edited looking title wins with nobody taking any real bumps. They can't, they're old. But just the very fact that Pat Patterson won the title in 2019, Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe and DiBiase's name are going to go back down in the record books as being champions in professional wrestling. And to me, just the novelty of that is pretty cool. So I thought all of the Legends' involvement with the 24/7 title was fun, put it that way. But my favorite Legend interaction of the entire night, the best of the best from Monday, easily the best thing we saw on the whole show, was Mick Foley coming out to the ring, and he was talking about that he wanted to win the 24/7 title. For some reason, he has this desire to win the title, and he kept talking about that. I'm going to go out to the ring, because he unveiled it. Remember in that shitty promo where he held up that ugly ass belt that sucked? So I feel like he wanted some redemption. He wanted to redeem himself, and he wanted to win the title. So he gets on the mic and he's like, I want the belt, or whatever he says. Lights go out. Bray Wyatt appears in the crazy ass scary mask, and he gives Foley the mandible claw. Puts Foley down, which is perfect because Foley can't really take any bumps, but a mandible claw, you can pull that off and you can just shove him to the ground, which is what happened. And put Foley's own move on him. I thought Foley was one of the best, or probably the best Legend for Bray Wyatt to do that to, because picture this in your head. I want you just to imagine this for 1 second. Imagine summer of 1996, Mankind. Imagine, what's today's date? July 26th? Imagine July 26th, 1996, Mankind against July 26th, 2019, Bray Wyatt. That would be a match. You talk about a black hole of crazy. Holy shit. I would pay, there's no amount of money that I would pay to see that. I would pay so much to watch that match if we could put that together in a fantasy type of match. Y'all video game players, WWE 2K, whatever the fuck, can you make this thing happen and send me some screenshots? Can you put 96 Mankind in the ring with 2019 Bray Wyatt? I want to see that. And I think that would be a great match. I'm still going to go with Mankind. I just think that character was so fucking nuts. And I think if those two characters came face to face, would be amazing. But unfortunately, we got 2019 Mick Foley, who does not look anything like he did in 1996. And it's not the same, but it's that great throwback. He's the perfect legend. If he came out and did that to Flair or something, nobody'd give a shit. Foley was the one he needed to do that to, and I think that's great. So that was my favorite part of the whole show, because this is a very scary gimmick. I am praying that WWE does not fuck this up. It's one of the only bright spots on the show right now, and so far so good with what they've been doing. My only critique on Bray Wyatt is I don't like the nickname, The Fiend, because as usual, they don't shut the fuck up about it. Every 5 seconds, The Fiend, The Fiend. That's dumb. And it got old real quick. I think maybe that can be a nickname for him, but not something you need to say every time. You don't need to put it in the graphics for SummerSlam, which we'll talk about in a minute with Finn Balor challenging Bray Wyatt. You don't need to put in the SummerSlam graphic, Finn Balor versus The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. I hate that. So I wish the Fiend could kind of be like an afterthought nickname, you know, not one that they have to mention alongside his name, like the Demon Kane or, you know, other fucking examples of that. So I don't want to see that. But other than his stupid nickname, I really like Bray Wyatt. I like that you got to remember where all this started with the Firefly Funhouse. As a matter of fact, I think he accepted Balor's challenge with a Firefly Funhouse on the Tron. So he's this crazy fucker with the mask, and then he's Mr. Rogers. The next night, we still don't know what he's going to look like when he gets in the ring. I'm assuming he's wearing that gear that he's got. I don't know if he's going to wrestle in that mask or not. It's a pretty hard mask. I don't know. I'd almost put him in something softer, like a Mankind mask or a Kane mask, if you are going to have him wrestle in a mask at all. So I don't know when he eventually gets in the ring if that thing comes off. I'm assuming it would. It seems intrusive and cumbersome. I just wouldn't want that thing on me at all, or at least try to wrestle in it. And I'm going to talk about the Demon and the potential Demon and Fiend match here in a minute when we talk about SmackDown. So I'm really curious, like, how he's going to look, and we're going to find that out at SummerSlam. And he's definitely going to be winning his match there. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of Monday Night Raw, and also give some thoughts on it, is the ending segment. Pretty telling segment. So they brought out every legend that they had on Raw on Monday, lined them all up on the stage, and they had Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan come out and kind of like cut little promos. They basically opened for Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think Flair said something, Hogan had his "What You Gonna Do, brothers" and all of that, and then after they said a few words, out came Austin, makes his way to the ring. He's in the ring all by himself with everybody else up on the stage, cuts a promo on wrestling, cuts a promo on the brotherhood of pro wrestling, and talks about how we're all family and Monday Night Raw is a family and all this shit. You know, I kind of thought we were still going to get a match in the main event. I didn't know that this big toast was going to be the main event, and I was really thinking that maybe something would happen in the main event. But really, it was just a big celebration of Monday Night Raw, which we've seen before, and it was really nothing that major. And then he called everybody out to the ring after he gave his speech. Everybody got in the ring, toasted beers. He had coolers of beers in the ring. You had beer flying everywhere. And I see this beer flying all over the ring, and I'm like, where the fuck is Scott Hall? You know, because he's, you know, in recovering alcoholic, and he doesn't need to be anywhere near that. And if you look in the ring, he wasn't there. And you hear those stories back in 2002 when Austin and Hall had that program and they were dumping the beer on Hall, but he was taking that medicine that made you sick. I don't know how beer would affect him now, but it's probably not something you want poured on you, especially if you're a recovering alcoholic. So I was really happy to see Scott Hall not in the ring for that. But they did all their beer toasting, and Austin, I think, was swimming in the beer, and he bounced off the ropes and had a good time, and had a really good time. And that's all it was. It was just a nice legend segment, and it was nice. I never get tired of seeing Austin, and I think that was really telling when Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair opened for him. You know, Hogan, with everything that's happened to him, with the controversy, with all of the turmoil in his life, and now most recently the last few years with the racial comments and all of that, you know, WWE, I think, has finally officially moved on to Stone Cold Steve Austin as being the greatest of all time. Austin is no angel either. He's had a couple of run-ins with the law, a couple of gnarly ones too that I'd rather not even discuss. But you could tell that that shift is being made, you know, that Austin is going to be their go-to guy. Hogan can't even cut a promo anymore. Every time he cuts a promo, he stumbles his shit up. He said something, I think he said Raw Reunion or something like that. He said something that I would say during one of my live streams, you know, when I stumble over my words. But he's just not a good promo guy anymore, you know. He says shit wrong all the time, don't know what the fuck's going on. Austin can still cut a hell of a promo. The reaction he got, the pop he got from the crowd proves that WWE just does not create stars like that anymore. It's just not a thing, you know? And Austin, I think, will go down in history as being the biggest star that company has seen as far as what he meant to the company and, you know, how he really was the savior. You know, each guy had their, you know, Bruno was savior for senior and Hogan was savior for junior, and so was Austin. But Austin, I think, nowadays WWE looks at as the bigger star, and that was proven on Monday night, because if not, Austin would be out there with Flair and they would be introducing Hogan, and Hogan would go down to the ring and cut the promo by himself. So Austin is always the go-to guy for that now, and I think Raw kind of proved that. And I like it. I like Austin better than Hogan anyway, so it works for me. And I got some more thoughts on that in a second, but let me answer Andrew Pike's super chat, since you were very generous with a $10 super chat. I appreciate that. Somebody's already done the Bray Wyatt versus Mick Foley 2K19 match. Okay. The Fiend versus Mick Foley, at least I think it was, because this Mick Foley had long hair. Mick Foley won. Cool. I'd probably pick him to win anyway. So it was Fiend Bray Wyatt. It wasn't like previous Bray Wyatt. That's what I want to see. I want to see this new guy, and I want to see that specific Mick Foley, like that specific Mankind when he wore that original outfit, that shit brown colored outfit and that crazy ass mask, bald spots in his head from pulling his hair out. That Mick Foley, that Mankind is the one that I want to see take on the Fiend. But that's cool. I'll check that out. Tweet me a link or something if you have that. I'll definitely watch it because I just want to see what it looks like visually. I think it'll be cool. But what I also wanted to say about the Raw reunion show is that I kind of feel like these type of shows are starting to wear out their welcome with fans. We've seen this shit so many times, and it's the same thing. It's always DX coming down to the ring doing something. It's always the big legend segment where Ron Simmons says, damn. It's a lot of the same stuff, and I just think that it's kind of sad that the only time WWE can bank on a good rating is when they do this, because they scored one of their highest ratings in a while for this past Monday, which means people tune in when these guys are on the show. And I like seeing the legends, but that shouldn't be what it takes. You should get people to tune in to the show and get that rating without these guys. These guys should be a nice little bonus, a nice little extra. You shouldn't have to use them to get the rating that you really should have all along. The rating that they did on Monday, that's what they should be drawing. You know, and it took all of these legends, it took 50 fucking legends, paying each one of these guys money to show up just to get that rating that you should be getting anyway. You should probably be getting higher than that, actually. So I don't see why WWE, I understand that they don't want to really make another Stone Cold. They don't want to rely on one person, but what's the harm in making a superstar? You know, I don't see the harm in that. You know, Roman Reigns doesn't capture the fans' imagination the way Stone Cold did. Neither does Braun Strowman. Nobody in that company does. Even the most over people. Both champions, Seth and Kofi Kingston. Do either one of those guys get a pop like The Rock or Austin? Not even close. Not even fucking close. They don't get a pop any louder than Gangrel. And that just goes to show you how great shit used to be, you know? And when you lighten the restraints a little bit, and you loosen the cuffs, and you let these guys go out there and be a little bit more themselves, and maybe a little bit less scripting on these promos, the audience will be able to connect with them better. You can feel them more. You're not going to have, I mean, if WWE is nervous about, oh, if we don't script promos, wrestlers will botch shit, they're going to botch much more shit having to memorize lines. Did you see that fucking ridiculous backstage segment on Smackdown with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville? I can't remember what they said, but I think it was, you have Sonya saying, or you have Mandy saying, she says, I've got good news. Tonight, we're going to face the tag team champ. Or wait, what the fuck is it? I think Sonya said, are you telling me that if we win tonight, we're going to get a shot at the tag team championship? And then Mandy says, yes. And if we win tonight, we're going to get a shot at the tag team championship, or something like that. Something ridiculous. And it was so funny and so stupid. And it made air because it's live. But I'm like, why don't you pre-tape this shit? There was no reason why they could not have taped that 3 hours earlier. And that way, if they fucked it up, they could edit it or they could retake it. So scripted promos don't solve anything. They make things even worse. They make it so cringy. None of these wrestlers are good actors. And if you're memorizing lines, that takes a toll on you being able to connect with the audience because you're so concerned of being a bad actor that you can't connect. Well, if you're more yourself, go out and talk about this and say what you want. You know, I think the talent can eventually get more comfortable as they go. Nobody's great. Not everybody's great at promos, but I think they're way too micromanaged. We have promo classes now at the Performance Center, which on the surface doesn't seem like a bad idea. Sometimes I wish we had promo classes back in the 80s. Some of that shit was brutal. I don't want to go back to the dark ages of promos. I don't want to go back to Mean Gene Okerlund and Ken Patera. Look that shit up if you've never seen it. But I also don't want it to be so heavily scripted where these wrestlers don't know what the fuck they're saying. You know, and they're so concerned with memorizing their lines so they don't get in trouble and they don't get de-pushed. Wrestling shouldn't be about memorizing lines. It should be about wrestling and having a character and being able to speak and get your point across and articulate. It's ridiculous, you know, how much micromanagement is put into every single little word and syllable is already predetermined. You know, where it didn't used to need to be, even back in the days of Russo and Ferrara. They'd feed Brock some lines and shit. Some of his one-liners were totally written by guys. But for the most part, hey, you're having a match with Triple H next week. Make sure you mention this, this, and this. And other than that, call him a candy ass or Rudy Poo or whatever the fuck you want to say. Have fun. We trust you. Because you're a pro. You're a pro wrestler. We trust you. That's your job. You know, it's like WWE. The wrestlers don't need their hands held through everything. You know, you got to push the bird off the cliff to learn to fly type of thing. You know, when you're just holding their hands and doing all the work for them, I think it stunts everything. Since your growth, your creativity, you know, and your ability to care, your internal motivation, your internal drive to even give a shit about what you're doing when I got to go to TV and memorize fucking 3 paragraphs of a promo. It should be fun going to TV. Can't wait to get out there tonight and the adrenaline's running, you know, and I'm going to fucking get over and I'm going to fucking kill this promo. And instead you're like, oh God, I got to go in catering and eat a salad and memorize these fucking lines. Fuck that shit, man. Just, I don't know. And if anybody from WWE is listening to me, please don't offer me a job. I don't want it. Your company sucks. Anyway, Randall Yates, thank you for the $10, dude. I appreciate that a lot. I'm not the kind to bash WWE, but man, it's a snooze fest. I ain't disagreeing with you there. AEW is going to be a breath of fresh air. Love you, daddy. Thank you. Love you too. Yes, AEW is going to be a breath of fresh air. They already are. New Japan is a breath of fresh air. That's one thing that isn't on my notes because one thing I didn't have a chance to look at since about 7 days ago was the G1. I got to catch up on that, so I'm not really going to be talking about the G1. Last match I watched was last week was Moxley and Ishii. Jesus Christ, that match was good. I even tweeted the table spot from that, and I watched one other one. But anyway, I'm behind. I'm a few days behind. I got to catch up. I might do that tonight. I got some dinner to cook. Maybe a little New Japan is in my future for Friday night. If any of y'all want to stop by, plenty of beer, doors unlocked, come right on in. Who are you guys saying that makes no sense to? Me? I think John Cena's career is so low that he's on little kid shows. I don't think Moonlight O'Brien knows what he's talking about. John Cena is fantastic. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about John Cena earlier and I forgot. Number one, let me talk about his wrestling career for a second. One thing that I forgot to mention in the Monday Night Raw show is when he came out and cut a promo, he said he will be back. And that he's not going anywhere. Yes, he's not around as much and shit like that. He will be back. And that's what I've said all along. And I had a lot of people asking me in the chat, do you think John Cena is retired? I'm like, no. This is professional wrestling. Nobody retires. I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking somebody's going to die but still have a match. There will be a corpse in the ring at some point. Nobody retires. And John Cena is... yeah, he's older, but he's still in great shape and perfectly capable of wrestling. 2 years ago, he was having match of the year with AJ Styles. So John Cena's got juice left in the tank. Yes, he's transitioning into acting. I think he's doing a good job there, but he will be back to wrestle again. But the days of John Cena being on top, annoying the fans to the degree that he did back in 2010 through, or basically 2007 through 2016 maybe, those days are long over. Long over. But I will guarantee my left testicle that he will be world champion again. He's got one more to win. He's got to break Ric Flair's record. He might even win 2 more. But there's 2 guarantees I have as it relates to John Cena. He will be world champion again, and he will be universal champion. He's going to win that belt on Raw. WWE is going to want his name in the record books as a universal champion holder. Absolutely. And plus, it's a belt he's never won. World title he's never won. I still know that he's never been Intercontinental Champion. I don't know if they'll try to get that out of the way before he retires or not. Maybe. Ric Flair won the Intercontinental title at age 106. So maybe John Cena can do the same thing later in his career. But immediately, I think he would be Universal Champion. And I had a couple of scenarios that I laid out weeks ago, trying to push Drew McIntyre to the next level. I'm like, how cool would it be if Drew went on a run for the rest of this year, won a bunch of matches, won the Royal Rumble next year, and went in to challenge the Universal Champion, who just might be John Cena. Maybe John Cena wins the belt somehow at the Royal Rumble and beats whoever the champion is, whether it be Brock or whoever, and then has a short run, nothing long, because he's got probably another movie to make. He can't be champ for 9 months. Put the belt on him at the Royal Rumble. He's a huge legend, record-breaking champion, won more titles in the company than anybody else, and he's going to be a fucking Hall of Famer, and he was a poster boy for WWE for many years. That is a big name going into WrestleMania as champion, who's had an impressive run of wins at WrestleMania, a lot of big matches, a lot of main events, a lot of title victories at WrestleMania, and he drops it to Drew McIntyre. You know, don't launch Drew by having Drew beat Seth Rollins. Launch Drew by having him beat a legend like a Brock, like a John Cena. So I think WWE could kill a lot of birds with one stone with John Cena if they want to make him champion again to break Ric Flair's record. They also want to make him Universal Champion again. And then once they do that, they can use him to put someone over, which is the stage in John Cena's career that he is in now. He's not in 2014 stage where he's going into the ring at WrestleMania with Rusev or Bray Wyatt and beating him. It's not like he's never going to win a match again. He is. But he's not to that level where I think he's going to hold down or beat somebody who he shouldn't beat, put it that way. And I think this time, if he gets the title, he'll put somebody over, and it could be a good moment for whoever that future champion is. But knowing WWE, he'll win the title and then just drop it to Triple H or some shit. I don't know. But if it was up to me, I'd have Cena win the Universal title at Royal Rumble, drop it to Drew at WrestleMania. Will WWE do that? No, they won't. But that's what I do. And on top of that, and as I was going to say about his acting career as well, I think John Cena is a great actor. He's good. He's funny. He's charming. He's likable. He does a great job. And it's okay, Moonlight O'Brien. I'm not mad at you. It's just, you know, if you want to like dislike John Cena, that's fine. But my biggest complaint with Cena haters in the past is that their hate for him turns into untrue statements. It's okay to not like John Cena. Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with saying I dislike John Cena just because I dislike him. I hate his face. I don't like his green hat. Hate the guy. But with the fans, they would take it to another degree, to where back in the day, I would hear things like, Cena can't wrestle, and he can't cut a promo. Well, John Cena cuts great promos, and he has Match of the Year candidates literally every year that he's in the business. So that's wrong. Just plain and simple. I'm like, you're letting your hatred overtake critical thinking. You know, John Cena can wrestle. He can cut a promo. You might not like that he wins, and you might not like what he says in promos, but that doesn't mean he can't do them. And I think the fans just kind of get their reality warped when hate and anger overtakes them. And I saw that a lot with John Cena. You see it recently with Roman Reigns in the last few years. I understand all the complaints with Roman Reigns, but to say he sucks, nobody cares about him, he can't wrestle, that's not what you were saying when he was in the Shield. When he was in the Shield, everybody loved him and he could wrestle. But now that you don't like him, he can't wrestle. So the fans bullshit themselves, and they basically negate any sort of argument that they have. Any truths that they have in their arguments is buried under hate. It's buried under the stupid statements. They let the dumb statements get out instead of having that filter. Okay, just let truths get out. If you want to criticize Cena and Roman Reigns, criticize the truths about them, not what's just fucking ricocheting around in your empty, brainless fucking skull. I hate him. He can't wrestle. No, he can wrestle. He can wrestle his balls off, and he's done it plenty of times. And Cena, like I said before, he's a great dude. You don't hear any horror stories about him. There might be a case or two of him holding somebody back or two, but not to the degree that the Click did or Hogan did or Austin did. You know, Austin was difficult as shit to work with too. John Cena's never been arrested for 3 DUIs. John Cena's never smacked around his girlfriend. John Cena's never dropped the N-word. Well, actually, maybe he has. Maybe he has. But not in the way Hogan did. And he's also not a drug addict. Doesn't have a handful of wellness policy violations on his record like Randy Orton does and Jeff Hardy and others. The guy's been an absolute gem of an employee. Complete company guy, well-liked, liked in the media, liked in the mainstream, liked in wrestling. You know, wrestlers, very few wrestlers shit on him. Some do. Some leave WWE, they're bitter. Oh yeah, Cena held me down or whatever. But it's not as bad. You don't hear near the stories about Cena that you do about Shawn. Imagine that, if you will. Imagine if John Cena had the attitude of 1996 Shawn Michaels. Do you want that guy walking around backstage? With the way the fans acted about Cena, that's the way you would think he was or something. Wow, damn, is this guy just a pilled out fucking maniac? Walking around slapping guys' girlfriends backstage or something? The way the fans are talking about this guy, you would think that he killed their firstborn. When really, in reality, all he does is wear a green hat and win a bunch of matches. That's all it is. You don't like his clothes, you don't like his stupid song, and he wins all the time. That's why you don't like him. You don't like him because he can't wrestle. You don't like him because you don't like him. He's not your cup of tea. You don't connect with him. He's not your favorite character. And when he takes up TV time, if you have a character that you don't personally care for, taking up TV time, you're going to turn that into, oh, he doesn't deserve it, and he sucks, and this and that, just because I personally don't like him. Me. Because, of course, what I like is important. What everybody else likes is not. So those are the type of attitudes, comments from fans that I've been really happy to not have to deal with in a long time. Like, we haven't had those Cena-hating bullshit around here. You know, now it's kind of transferred over to Roman, but I think even the fans even lighten up on Roman. And I remember back in like 2011, I said, mark my words, there will come a day when John Cena goes into the Hall of Fame that you will stand on your feet and you will applaud him. And you will look back at your younger self and you will say, I was ignorant. I was immature. I wish I could take that back, and I'm a fool for thinking that. I've thought that about hundreds of things in my life. You're not alone. We all go through it. We all say stupid shit, and we all wish we didn't say that stupid shit. And I think when it comes to many fans who get into their 40s, who were in their 20s or a teenager when Cena started, when they're full of piss and vinegar and hate, they're going to look back at themselves as a mature adult and say, wow, I gave John Cena a lot of undeserved shit. And I disrespected the hell out of him any chance I got. And maybe I feel a little bit bad about that because he was good for the business, you know, and he was we needed that. After Chris Benoit, after all of the deaths, the drug abuse, the black eyes on the business, we needed a John Cena. I don't think the fans understand that. They're so wrapped up in what their own brain wants as a wrestling fan, they don't understand that the wrestling business itself and WWE needed someone like that. They needed that more squeaky clean type of guy that was going to be a good representation for WWE to send out there into the world. Go on Ellen, go on fucking Kimmel, and go represent us well, like we know you can do. You know? He's not in the green room getting fucking hammered, doing lines of coke with fucking 50 Cent. You know, he's out there like a professional, talking like a gentleman, you know, representing pro wrestling in a respectful way. So why do we hate him, you know? And now that he's not around anymore, and he's only around sporadically, and when he does come back, and if he does have a run with the title, I better not see, oh, WWE's just going back to Cena. I guarantee we're going to see and hear that. There's going to be YouTubers saying it, and there's going to be people tweeting it. Oh, WWE's just going back to John Cena. No, they're not going back to John Cena. He's just back, and they're giving him a title run. They weren't going back to The Rock when he came back in 2011. They knew he was just in for a few months. He was going to work a program. He's going to appear every now and then during the year for a few years and have a couple of matches. What's the big deal? He's not being shoved down our throats, and John Cena won't be shoved down our throats either. Even if he does win that belt, he will lose it rather rapidly because he's got movie deals left and right. And I really want to see, I've been saying this forever, don't you guys want to see, and I usually don't even watch these movies, I've never even seen hardly any of John Cena's movies, but wouldn't it be funny if like Rock and John Cena starred in a movie together? I watched recently, I forgot what the name of it is now, Blockers, a few weeks ago. John Cena and, oh God, all the Judd Apatow crew. There's like 3 main characters and they're trying to cock block their daughters on prom night and this whole thing. And John Cena is a main character in that. And he's funny. And every time he did that Amy Schumer movie too, and he always plays a dork. He always plays a weirdo, you know, kind of like a closet gay guy or something. He's really funny and he's entertaining. You know, for such a big, muscled up, jacked up guy, he plays such a lame dude in the movies. And I think that's hilarious. It shows that he has a sense of humor. So I would love to see like an Apatow comedy, romantic comedy where like Cena and Rock both vie for the same girl, whatever hot young actress is popular right now in Hollywood. Get her as the centerpiece, and then Rock and John Cena can kind of have a movie-long pissing contest with each other to where they go after her, and maybe she rejects them both in the end, and then they become friends or something. But, I mean, I think that could be funny because The Rock and John Cena have got such a history on WWE TV, and now John Cena is sort of trying to follow in the Rock's footsteps, and it would be fun to see them come together, or at least come face-to-face for a cameo in a movie. Would be cool, you know? And I think they actually are. Didn't I see something about some Fast and Furious movie? So that may actually be on the horizon. They may actually be on the silver screen together, but I want to see like a movie featuring them together. It would be funny to me, just as a wrestling fan. Anywho, but he's good, you know? Like, I think we should all respect Cena, you know, for going out there. And again, like, I've always said that about certain guys when they leave wrestling and they go on to more success. I'm like, that's great. I want that. I want people to say, who's this guy? Oh, he used to be a wrestler? I don't want people to look down on wrestling. I want people to, you know, to respect wrestling. And you have a lot of people like Brock Lesnar going off and winning real fighting championships. You know, you got Chris Jericho who's in a band and doing all sorts of other stuff. And John Cena's doing movies. And The Rock is one of the biggest stars in Hollywood ever. You know, and that's great. They all came from us. They're one of us. They were born here, you know, in wrestling. And to me, that's good. So I think fans, you know, to this day, who still harbor resentment towards Cena, you should root for his success in Hollywood. 2 reasons. Number 1, makes the business look good. And number 2, gets him out of your face. If he's making movies, he can't be winning titles. So it's a win-win for everybody to root for the success of John Cena. And I think all the fans should. But anyway, that's going to wrap up the comments on the Raw reunion. And now we're going to get into Smackdown, the SummerSlam card, and then I'm going to get out of here. But first, I want to look at how long we've been going. 2 hours on this podcast. Holy crap. Holy crap. Let's get into SmackDown. I'm not going to talk much about SmackDown. I just wanted to talk about the main angle on SmackDown Live when Shawn Michaels was a guest on Miz TV. Shawn was there on Monday night. Like I said, he did the segment with DX and the OC. And I was wondering why HBK didn't throw a punch on AJ Styles. Maybe this is why. Ziggler interrupts Shawn Michaels on Miz TV and gets in his face. Starts talking shit, and they got a little personal. Ziggler brings up Shawn's match last year in Saudi Arabia with Triple H. It was DX against the Brothers of Destruction, and it was the worst fucking match we've ever seen. I was kind to it in my review because I was so tired from the morning. I was watching it through like one bloodshot eye. I didn't realize how bad the performance was until after the fact, because I think when I did a review, I'm like, yeah, Shawn did pretty good. And he was the best wrestler in that match easily, but he certainly wasn't the Shawn that we knew. And Ziggler, and plus he looked terrible with the bald head. He did not even look right. And Ziggler called him out and said that match was embarrassing. And it was. And HBK agreed with him. And then dropped the bomb of all bombs. And he's like, I was embarrassed. You're right, Dolph Ziggler. But you know what's more embarrassing than that? Working your whole life, giving everything you have. And for years and years and years, and never being known as anything more than a second-rate Shawn Michaels wannabe. Which got a huge bunch of oohs and ahs from the crowd, but that really is what Ziggler is. Ziggler emulates Shawn, dresses like him, wears the same boots, very similar ring style, very similar size. Shawn might be a little bigger back in his day, but they are very similar, and that would be a dream match. And they got in each other's faces, and then Miz is involved in this too, and the way it looked previously is that they're building to Ziggler and Miz. I don't want Ziggler and Miz. I don't want that match at all. I'm going to be so disappointed if they do all of this and they don't go with Ziggler and Shawn. But after it's all said and done, Shawn winds up eating a super kick from Dolph Ziggler, and he's standing over Shawn. And I'm like, man, please do this match. Do you know how disappointed we would be if it turned out to be Miz and Dolph Ziggler? This Shawn Michaels match to me is different than the one back in Saudi Arabia. I did not want him to come back at all. It rubbed me the wrong way that he came back for a payday like this. He was the only guy that stayed true to his retirement. The only one. Everybody, barring injury, that is. He's the only guy not to be injured to stay retired. Where everybody else comes back. Terry Funk came back 100 times. So when he decided to return last year, I'm like, shit, that sucks. I don't want to see that. So maybe Shawn wants to redeem himself. If you notice, The Undertaker put on a really good performance at Extreme Rules, and I think we all felt like he had something to prove. He was embarrassed by that debacle with Goldberg, also in Saudi Arabia, big surprise, and he wanted to come out there and redeem himself because it was probably driving him crazy. This is an excellent chance for Shawn Michaels to do the same thing. Shawn Michaels being in the ring with Undertaker and Kane were terrible opponents. I believe that Shawn can still have a good match if he's in the ring with the right opponent, like an AJ Styles or a Dolph Ziggler. And to me, this accomplishes so many goals if they do this. Number one, when you look at the current SummerSlam card, this adds a big feature match, one that we don't have, because everybody else on the card is, or every other match on the card, nothing is even special, with the matches they have announced so far. And you don't have any match that really sticks out or is an attraction match, I should say. So to have a match like this is on the marquee as one of your feature matches and one of your attraction matches, I think would be good, and it would put Ziggler in a big spot. And here's the thing. I think Ziggler should beat him. Ziggler has been cock-blocked at every turn. Every time it seems like that initial title run when he won in 2013 and then he got injured, was it concussion stuff or whatever? He was never able to get back on track after that. So year after year goes by and he has feuds. WWE tries to start something up with him. He had a great feud with The Miz a couple of years ago, right? 17 or 16. His career was even on the line. It was a no mercy match, right? I want to say it was like 3 years ago. Career on the line, Intercontinental title, and he won. Great moment for him. But even that couldn't get him back on track. And he cut great promos leading up to that. Really good promos. Which makes you wonder, how can this guy be so good at promos and so good in the ring and WWE doesn't do jack shit with him? So maybe this is a chance for Shawn Michaels to redeem himself from that terrible match, and maybe this is a chance to finally put a feather in the cap of Ziggler. He lost at the last pay-per-view, right, in like 10 seconds to Kevin Owens. He needs something here, so if you put Shawn in the ring with him, they have a good match. He gives Shawn a good match, and maybe Shawn puts him over, excellent feather in his cap. Shawn returns to SummerSlam again, which he's had great memorable matches at that pay-per-view before, and puts on a great performance, crowd applause. Shawn can even get, because that's the thing, he can get the hero's treatment in a loss here. It does not matter. Shawn does not need to win this match. He can give Ziggler a good match, put him over, and then get the hero's goodbye, the standing ovation from the crowd as Ziggler celebrates and leaves. Excuse me. Excuse me. Shawn lays in the ring alone, and the fans just cheer and clap for him, and that can be his official end, and that can be his official final match, never to wrestle again. But then again, with Saudi Arabia shows every couple of years, or every couple times a year, he may get back in the ring. But I think that would be such a nice moment. It would give SummerSlam a much-needed big match on the card. It would give us a reason to tune in. Even with Shawn coming back after 9 years or 8 years, we weren't even that excited to see his match in Saudi Arabia because it felt dirty. The whole show felt dirty, and that was right after the journalist was killed. So it marred Shawn Michaels' return, and it just ruined everything. And it was just gave me such a sour taste in my mouth. This has a chance to make up for all of that. So I really hope that they go through with this match, and I hope that they don't give us Miz and Ziggler, because I don't give a shit about Miz and Ziggler. By the way, if any of y'all saw my thumbnail, check out how funny the Miz looks in the thumbnail. But I just think it would help Shawn's career, or at least what we remember of it, and it would help Ziggler's career immensely. If you want to involve Miz in this, maybe he's the referee or some shit, I don't know, but I just don't want it to be Miz and Ziggler. That would just be so disappointing, but it very well could be. But based on, the super kick and what was said in the promo, how do you do that segment and not have a match, Like a lot of people are speculating, I don't know if they're going to do it. Well, then why did they do that shit on Smackdown then? Like, I feel like they should do it. So I want them to. I'm hoping for Shawn and Ziggler at SummerSlam. I'd be very happy to see that happen. Another big match on the announced for SummerSlam, and it was made official, was Kevin Owens against Shane McMahon. Now, Kevin Owens has put his career on the line. If he loses against Shane McMahon, he will quit. Kevin Owens is probably the hottest guy in the company right now. His promos have been off the hook. Shane McMahon is an excellent person for babyface Kevin Owens to go up against because Shane is really hated right now by the wrestling audience. He's got a ton of heat. Nobody likes him. Feels like he was taking up a spot, all that stuff. So Shane being Owens' opponent, I think really helps get Owens over even more as a babyface. I was worried they were going to make a mistake on SmackDown when Shane booked Owens to face Roman Reigns in a babyface match. I think that was in the main event. And luckily it turned out to be a big brawl with Drew McIntyre, who was the referee. Elias was the timekeeper. Everybody got involved and started kicking kicking Kevin Owens' ass. And then Owens and Roman eventually worked together, which I thought was the right thing to do. So Owens' career essentially is on the line at SummerSlam. I'm expecting him to win unless they want to add a ton of heat to Shane McMahon, have him beat Kevin Owens, and Owens is gone, and then maybe he comes back. They already did this. He tried to quit a year ago, and nothing ever became of that. So I'd hate to see him quit again just for it to lead to nothing. I'm going to mute my mic so I can cough. 1 second. Sorry about that. I did not want you guys to have to hear that. But my throat is scratchy because I've been talking for 2 hours and I worked like 6 hours today and I was talking all day at work. So I've literally been talking for over 8 hours. So I got to wrap this up soon. But Owens, when he faced Shane, that was 2017, right? I was asking you guys about that on Monday night. They did the big Hell in a Cell match, and I think that was when Shane dove off and Sami Zayn pulled Owens out of the way. Is that the way the finish went down? And Owens won that match. So I suppose maybe Shane could win here and they're just swerving us and then Owens comes back. But I would think that Owens needs to put Shane down at SummerSlam. If you remember, about a month ago, there was a lot of talk and a lot of internal rumblings in WWE that they might be putting the belt on Shane McMahon. And no, that would be the wrong idea. Wrong thing to do to the fans right now, especially with AEW on the horizon. But I could see them doing it. And if they did it for a cup of coffee, I wouldn't care. You know, Vince is in the record books as being WWE champion. He's in the record books as being ECW champion. Stephanie is a former women's champion. If they want to give Shane, who has given a lot, he has sacrificed his body a lot. I know Shane is on everybody's shit list right now. I know. I get it. Totally. But you got to remember how much everybody used to like Shane. Remember his return in 2016? When he came back, he got the pop of the century. When he returned, there was a lot of people that loved and missed Shane McMahon. He's just doing a really good job of being a heel right now. And on top of that, he's a heel that has a prominent spot on the roster. And a lot of people are saying, well, that spot could go to somebody else. Well, it kind of is. If you realize Shane's not out there by himself. Shane is flanked by a couple of guys every week. He's always got Elias with him. He's always got McIntyre with him. So essentially, they are using him in that way because he's got other younger talent, main guys on the roster associated with him in his storyline. So it's not necessarily that he's taking up a spot because he has people with him. He's like a three-man group right now. He's got everybody. So it's not like just him out there, you know, hogging up TV time. When he's out there, he's usually got somebody by his side. So I'm not too mad about that, but still, when you have a roster full of the type of talent that you have and you see so many great workers unused and not even appearing on TV, hanging in the back, and you got 50-year-old Shane McMahon out there working with Roman Reigns, I can see why the fans are getting tired of his ass. So I want to see Kevin Owens stun Shane and try to do it without Shane botching it. Stun Shane right out of his Nike sneakers and pin his dumbass at SummerSlam. That's what I'm hoping for. And the only other thing I want to mention about SmackDown is not even what happened on SmackDown. It's what's happening tomorrow. Smackville. On the WWE Network. I guess it's going to be kind of like a house show in Nashville. WWE's going to tape it. Bunch of matches announced. I think Kofi's defending the title. You got Balor and Shinsuke for the IC. And that's going to be a network special tomorrow. I probably won't watch that at all. If I do, I'll tune into it later. And I'm sorry, I did not mention, there is one other thing I want to mention about SmackDown, and that is Finn Balor challenging Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. Came out to the ring, cut a promo, challenges Wyatt. Wyatt appears on the screen in Firefly Funhouse gear and accepts the challenge. And I think it should be Demon versus Fiend. Why is it not? As of right now, it's not announced unless they throw something together next week on the Go Home show or whatever and say, okay, it's going to be Demon versus Fiend, because this is the perfect match. Bray Wyatt, if he's going to have his first match as this new character, what better way, other than winning a title, to bring him on the scene than to hand the Demon his first loss on the main roster, unless WWE wants to protect the streak. But I think they should end it right here. Have Finn Balor. They can do something on TV this week. Maybe The Fiend attacks Finn Balor, and then Balor realizes the only way to contend with somebody this crazy is to equal the amount of crazy that he has with my own crazy, and come out as the Demon. And then it's the Demon versus the Fiend, and the Demon finally gets beat on the main roster. Yes, I know he lost in NXT, so stop typing. I'm talking about on the main roster, have Bray Wyatt end the streak of the Demon. That is the perfect victory to give him. It makes a statement. Word on the street also is that Balor has requested time off. Perfect way to get him off TV. And when he does come back, now that the streak is gone, you could come back, you could bring him back heel and join the OC, join Club and join AJ and Gallows and Anderson. That's exactly what they should do with him. Have him be the Demon at SummerSlam, get beat. The Demon has to disappear for a while. And then when he returns, he's all of a sudden a heel, jumps to Raw, joins up with the OC. Might as well, right? That's what I would do with Bray Wyatt. So I hope that that match turns into Demon Finn Balor against Bray Wyatt. And that brings us now to the SummerSlam card. Let me run through the 6 matches. We haven't even talked about Rollins and Lesnar. Really nothing to say there, nothing new there. Paul Heyman came out and said a few words about Brock Lesnar. He's defending the title against Seth Rollins, and that match does make me nervous in terms of Rollins winning it back, because why would they have Rollins win it at WrestleMania, have Lesnar win the briefcase, take the belt back, and then put it back on Rollins? Wouldn't that make the whole briefcase victory completely pointless in the grand scheme of things? So I almost think Lesnar's retaining. And I would really like to see a heel turn for Seth Rollins in the future. I feel like the fans are turning on him a little bit. I think he's an excellent wrestler. I'm still a big Seth Rollins fan, but his promos don't connect that well with babyface audiences, and I think Seth would make an excellent heel, be more of a CM Punk type of heel. Might be a better role for him. So maybe they try to throw a double turn at us or something. Maybe he cheats. Maybe he's so mad at Lesnar for stealing that briefcase that he annihilates him with a chair or kicks him in the nuts or does something, and you have Lesnar losing the belt but coming out of it the babyface. I don't know. But if I had to guess, I think that Lesnar might hang on to the belt for right now, because why take it off of him? So that makes me nervous. Kofi Kingston is taking on Randy Orton. That was also, I should have talked about that. I'm sorry, I did not mention that on SmackDown either. Kofi Kingston is officially defending the title against Randy Orton. He basically challenged Randy Orton on SmackDown. They got personal in that promo too, bringing up their feud from all those years ago, back in 2009. That was when Randy Orton kind of used his influence to hold down Kofi, and that kind of was the real story. I think that was right around the time of the whole stupid thing too that they did in the match, and that was a fun feud. I remember it kicked off well. They had a couple of really good matches, that hardcore match where they went through the table, and Kofi was impressing some people and turning some heads, and next thing you know, it ended, and he never got beyond that mid-card status ever again. Never worked with another top guy, never had a top program ever until now. So to see him full circle here with Randy Orton is pretty interesting, and you got to think that one of these world titles, it's SummerSlam. Don't you have to have one of your world titles change hands at SummerSlam? So this might be it for Kofi, but Kofi's done a good job with his run. This might also be a victory that I want to see Kofi get, avenge that loss, or avenge what happened to him, with Randy Orton all those years ago. But they might also be gearing up Randy Orton for one more run with the title. Randy Orton might get one now, and then maybe John Cena gets one later on this year or next year or something like that. So maybe it's kind of run one more hurrah for Randy Orton. I don't know. But it depends on where that match falls on the card. Kofi might retain. Who knows? If you notice, Kofi's been beating guys left and right. He's got different opponents in front of him every pay-per-view, and he's winning. So Randy Orton might be no different. Who knows? I don't know what they do there. And if Randy Orton does win, Kofi will probably get a rematch. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Randy Orton will be the guy that WWE feels is better to be champion, with Fox going, or with SmackDown going to Fox. That might be the case. And with Brock clearly not going to SmackDown now, Orton might be the way to go. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty interesting that we could have Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar both walking out as champions, and probably will, and likely will at SummerSlam. We have Becky, of course, defending the Raw Women's title against Natalya, who won that match to get that spot. And that's interesting. They did a little moment of bliss segment on Raw this past week, and there was some fighting going on. So it looks like they're getting a little personal. You know, Natty tried to be respectful, and Becky came out there and gave her shit and wasn't having any of that. And Natty is now mad. So there's some heat there, which is good. Becky, much like Seth Rollins, fans are turning on her. It's happening. They're over her. Last year, they wanted Nia Jax's head on a platter. People wanted me to die just because I wasn't freaking out as hard as they were about Nia Jax punching Becky Lynch. She's got to go back to NXT. Fuck Nia Jax. You know, and now fans don't give two fucks about Becky Lynch. Now it's like too much. Fans, as soon as they get what they want, it's all torn down. You know, WWE says, holy shit, the fans really like Becky. You know what we should do? We should give her the title in the first ever female main event of WrestleMania. The fans want her this bad. We're going to give her to them in the best way possible. And now they do it, and nobody likes her. And this match with Natalya is also weird. This feels like it should be a match for Stomping Grounds, not SummerSlam. I thought we might get a Becky and Ronda rematch. I don't know what the deal with Ronda is, if she's making babies or not, but there's been some rumblings that maybe she could be coming back in. And if she does, there's a built-in angle there because she wasn't technically pinned at WrestleMania. She can use that excuse. And she's also bros with Natty. So maybe she does a run in here. I would love to see that. Have Ronda Rousey run in and cost Becky the title and have Natty win it or something. And Natty can go on her way to defend the belt against somebody else, and then Becky and Ronda can have a grudge match with no belt on the line. You can always do it that way. Or maybe Becky wins and has a match with Ronda down the line. But being that it's SummerSlam and she's facing Natty of all people, it makes me wonder if Ronda gets involved. I hope she does. SummerSlam needs some star power, man. Hopefully we get that Shawn match. Hopefully we get Ronda on the show. And that might help beef up the card and spice it up a little bit for SummerSlam. Bayley is also defending the Smackdown Women's title against Ember Moon. So that's good that Ember's getting a shot. This shot is coming out of left field. It is. But I'm not upset by it because a lot of us have been screaming for Ember Moon to be pushed or given opportunities. Here they've given her one. Again, with Bayley, I don't know what they're going to do. If they're going to pass the title on to Ember or not, or if it's going to stretch out. Not sure there. Predictions will be coming in a week or so. Owens and Shane McMahon, of course, I already mentioned that match. And hopefully the Demon Finn Balor taking on the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. So I'm out of breath. What do y'all think? New format of the Winged Eagle podcast. How did we do tonight? Like I said, this is going to evolve as we go through, probably doing a little bit less of the chat, but I always will. On every podcast, if I'm doing it live, I will answer all the super chats, but maybe I might limit my interaction with you guys a little bit, and I try to do a little bit of that here. And this is kind of how I want it to go moving forward. So I think it was a fun night. I think it was a fun first night. We went almost 2.5 hours tonight for the pilot episode of the Winged Eagle podcast. Next time you see me, let me pull up my calendar right now. My phone, hold on. My phone, which is on the ground. Let me look at these dates for August. And let me give you a tentative date. And for those of you who joined me in the beginning of this podcast, I had the huge botch. I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to start doing these podcasts on Fridays. Every Friday. It might the time might vary, but I'll try to do it on that day. And then Nick Musser says to me, well, what are you going to do when SmackDown moves to Fridays? Good point. So let's make this Saturdays instead. So here's when I think the first episode is going to happen. August 10th or August 17th, one of those 2 days. I get back from my trip a few days before the 10th. I don't know if I'll have time to throw one together. And plus, that is the day before SummerSlam. So, yeah, we're not going to do a Winged Eagle podcast this week or that week. What you're going to get out of me is probably Friday, August 9th. You're going to get SummerSlam predictions. Possibly Thursday. Thursday, August 8th, or Friday, August 9th, you're going to get my SummerSlam predictions. Sunday, August 11th, I will be up here live streaming to SummerSlam. And then on the 17th, Saturday, the 17th, that will be the first episode of the Winged Eagle podcast. If that date changes, or I have to make any changes, I will let you know in my next video. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments of this video if you're watching this later on. I appreciate everybody stopping by tonight. I have not even looked at the audience in a while. Am I still up over here? Where am I? Let me refresh that page to see what we're looking at. Not bad. All right, we got 121 likes and 160-ish people here. And hopefully I'm still on, because I'm logged out of this YouTube channel now, so hopefully I'm still on over here. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here now. I really appreciate you guys hanging out tonight. Have a great weekend. I'll be up here Monday night live reacting to Raw, and if anything crazy happens this weekend, I'll throw a mic drop at you. So y'all have a good rest of your night and an excellent weekend. You're the best. Be good. Peace.